Hello, Automating Success listeners, and sometimes if you watch on YouTube, watchers. Today I have Todd Reinhart. Todd and I, honestly, I have to say, I think we're almost made from the same mold. We're so identical, it's almost scary, even down to if he had a beard, we might even look alike, as scary as that might be. But let me tell you a little about Todd, and then I'm going to let him introduce himself. Todd, much like myself, is a serial entrepreneur. Much like myself, he's in business with his brother, and they started their first business when they were 12 years old, selling sweet corn on their family farm. In 1986, they put a local ad in the newspaper, and their landscaping company was born. Since then, their company has expanded into most of central Illinois, building quite a self-performing professional landscaping company. I've seen it. It's an impressive operation. That's why I'm really excited to have Todd on the show. They also are a cutting edge company in bringing new technology into the landscaping industry. And basically, they're also not only doing landscaping, they also do snow removal, and they have 10 Weedman lawn care franchises. The list really goes on and on. They employ well over 200 people. But much like me, Todd is deeply passionate about horticulture, education, helping others, and helping mentor fellow entrepreneurs. So I am very happy to have someone as passionate about the industry as I am on the show with me today. So Todd, welcome to Automating Success.
Thank you.
And did I miss anything?
You most certainly did not. You pretty much covered it all.
Well, I had somebody on this podcast once, and he said the best thing you can do when somebody wants to come on your podcast is actually do the research and introduce them the best you can, because most leaders, they actually don't like to talk about their accolades. So I wanted to make sure I brought that up. So,
no, I'd much rather discuss others.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly why we're here. So, Tanya, tell me a little bit about, since you like to discuss others, tell me about your team. Tell us a little bit about your brother, and tell us about the great team of people you've assembled around you.
So, it's probably been, we've been building the team we have right now for about the last, 10 years or so. And really have hit our stride in the last 5 and more in the last 2. We adopted EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System, and Traction. If you've read the book by Gino Wickman, we have adopted a lot of those principles, and it has literally been rocket fuel for our company. Done some amazing things, because when you start your business, and as you grow and you hit that next plateau, you don't want to wander around on that plateau too long, and you end up getting killed, or you end up going in decline. And we'd reach that next plateau a lot of times and stay there too long, and we rebuild a team, we rebuild our systems, get ready to go to the next level, and we just kind of stall there maybe for 12 to 18 months, and then we grow again. But the team we have right now is the team that I'm very confident, Chad, my brother and I are very confident that they're going to take us to the next couple levels and beyond.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, for the people listening, when I met Todd and his brother Chad, and you can elaborate on this, Todd, but I could not believe how much Chad is like my brother and Todd is like me, and how literally in the same state somehow there was some parallel universe that had, 2 brothers working together and successfully working together in a landscaping business. So, I know how John and I make it work, but how do you guys make it work, Todd?
So EOS gave us that very good framework, and I know I keep going back to that, but we have had such amazing success. And EOS teaches you that there is a visionary and there's an integrator, and your brother and you are very much similar. For the visionary, we shouldn't have very many people reporting to us, if any at all. We have a tendency to drive especially admin and operations people, absolutely bonkers. They want to, for the most part, they want to kill us because we live so far out in front of them, whether it's a year, 36 months, 10 years. We're the visionaries always looking out, looking beyond where we're at today. We never spend a lot of time in today. We're always looking out for tomorrow. And this is what makes you and I's relationship. We just kind of bounce ideas back and forth and just continue to take it to the next level, to take it further. But that's your brothers, a lot like my brother. They're the integrators. They have built a great team around them. I shouldn't say that I have done a lot of the team building. I'll go out and recruit, but I'm not very good at the day-to-day management. So he has really put a team around him of financial professionals, admin, the operations team, and we're building out our sales team right now.
No, but as a visionary, I mean, and I think it's great that you're crediting the other people for building the team, but don't you think that you attract people, right? I mean, people with good vision, they attract people. I always say like lumps of clay, right? And then you sculpt that into a sculpture based on the direction and vision, right? Do you see that in your operation, Todd?
Yeah, a lot of people are attracted to the vision, but the day-to-day, when you, maybe you're the same as me, but when I get involved in the day-to-day operations, the visionary can typically create where we're going, set the culture for the company, keep a tight rein on a lot of those things, and have the 10, 20, sometimes 100 next big ideas. Maybe one of those is really good. And that's for the team, right? The team to decide what the good idea and what the bad idea is. I had one the other day and they're like, no, absolutely not. But it's interesting to see when you fully get it functioning of when the visionary isn't playing in the day-to-day. In fact, every time I seem to get involved in a situation or something that's going on at the company, like a routine decision, I usually foul things up. So yes, as far as the recruiting goes, and that's a big part of my job, I spend a lot of time out in the FFA chapters, the agriculture programs at about 10 of our local high schools within an hour's drive of me, as well as I'm on 2 advisory committees for curriculum for their agriculture colleges, as well as I have a really close relationship with a 3rd. So I'm in those programs constantly, just trying to recruit, just trying to find those next level people.
So, actually, that was going to be one of my questions was how do you build your team? So that's pretty much how you're doing it, right? I mean, you've got your vision for what you're looking for. So that kind of fits the mold for you then?
Yeah, and we put in, I'm between my brother and myself, and now my team, a lot of my managers are not out recruiting, but they always know somebody who knows somebody. And a lot of ours comes through, like 3 or 4 of our guys right now are some of my top managers and my employees all came through our church. So it is a well that we keep going back to as we need people. We've got 3 or 4 more that we've identified that we want to have on our team at some point in time in the future. We may not be able to afford them or have that position open right now, but we keep going. Like we're always looking for that. Hey, who would fit this position well? Or, hey, do we have a backup for that position? Because we actually play, it's a little morbid, but we play the get hit by a bus quite often here. I know that you and your brother have been doing this a little more too, is what happens today if I drop over dead, right? How is the buy-sell structured? How does it, how does the buy-sell work with insurance? Are we do we have enough life insurance to cover that? All those things. And that's fallen on my responsibility as well, into my area of responsibility. But, it's about ensuring, when you start to have 100, 200 people work for you, we should have started it a lot earlier, but all of a sudden one morning you wake up and go, holy crap, we're responsible for a whole lot of families. And what happens if something goes wrong with me today, with my brother, with top managers, top leadership? How do you prepare for when something like that happens? We've seen it happen at other companies, and it's been really a failure to prepare. And we don't want that to happen here, because none of my people's jobs should be risking on whether or not I come to work tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Yeah, when I started to venture down the key man type policies, my brother was like, wait, how much money do you want to spend on this and why? But it is something you have to think about, especially when you realize something that you're creating, it's almost like a living, breathing entity, right? There's so many pieces and so many lives at stake. When it's small, you kind of think, yeah, okay, when I'm gone, those few people will go get another job. But you really realize as you get larger, the operation, it runs better with you, but it also runs without you. And that's actually, for me anyways, and I'm sure you're the same, that's how you really know you're doing it right. Right? Would you agree?
Yeah, we've been referring to it more and more as a machine lately, right? Is it well greased? Is it taken care of? Are we doing our preventative maintenance? All those things, right? Because when you start talking about a bunch of operations people and you start referring to it as a machine, they get it pretty quick. They understand what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to bring something up. I've actually been waiting for this podcast to do it, because I was having a talk with my general manager the other day, and we were talking about my vision, and he goes, Joe, I love all your vision. Some days I just wish you got things over the finish line. And I said, I said, well, what do you mean by that? He goes, well, I mean, you always have all these ideas. You just never get them over the finish line. And I said, but Tanner, the thing that you need to understand about a visionary leader is I'm never finished. So for doers, and I want to see if you agree with this, Todd, because that's why I waited for today's show to do this. I said for doers, for the people that run operations for me, you guys want to start something and finish it, and you check the box and you say, I'm done. I'm never finished. I'm never going to be finished. Do you agree with that, Todd?
Yeah. So one of the best books, and it goes with EOS, and I know I keep going back to this, but it was what set me on this. Probably the let's say if we're let's call it Reinhart's 3.0, right? And that's what EOS has done for us. We have kind of 1.0 where we're out doing the work yourselves, 2.0 when you're still doing the work yourselves, but you got a lot of people around you, and 3.0 is a well-run machine, if you will. And the book that I read to get us to 3.0 was called Rocket Fuel. And it's, again, an EOS book, but it teaches all about the visionary. And it is probably the single best book you could ever read as far as if you're a visionary, how your integrator thinks. And if your integrator has to read it, because all of a sudden the light bulb comes on for it, your CFO, whether it's Tanner, I think you said.
John, but Tanner's my
John, right. Or your GM, right? You never finish. Well, if he reads this book, all of a sudden the light bulb comes on and he's like, oh, that's how he thinks. That's how he processes things. That's what drives him. That's what excites him. So that's when we studied this book, and I pretty much gave it to every one of my top people. I'm like, you need to read this. And of course you get done with the first half of the book and it's all about the visionary and why we are the way we are. But then like the last sentence in the visionary half of the book is, now as the visionary, you have to keep reading. You can't put the book down. Like, you must read the integrator section, because I'm a visionary and I know you're not going to keep reading unless I say this. So it is one of the best reads. Like, it explains who we are, and explains, because if you're a visionary, sometimes you feel like you live out on an island. But at the same time, you have to have the integrator, like your brother and my brother. You have to have these people, because they're the ones that make the trains run on time. They're the ones that, they organize everything and the people report to you. Because if you and I just, what's the old saying? If a visionary goes out or leads a team and he goes out for, to lead a team, and he turns around and no one's there behind him, he's just going out for a walk by himself. And I have a feeling sometimes that's the way it would be.
It's a great analogy. And it's actually funny because some days I'm like, the more successful, that I've become, kind of the more, even though I have more people that follow me, the more alone I feel, because you start reaching certain levels and milestones, and there's just fewer and fewer people that can relate to that type of passion and that type of drive, and I know you've got to deal with it, because like I said, we're so alike, where people are just like, when's enough? Why do you constantly need to do more? And it's like, it's not the need. It's never the need for me. It's the actual joy. It's like, I find joy in doing more. And if I don't, I feel like I'm like wasting my time, in that day. Right. So yeah, it's
one of our key things here at Reinhart is seeing others. We have it as one of our like core value statements, seeing others go further. And people are like, well, why do you guys have to just keep going, keep growing? And I said, it's not for me. Like you and I could quit where we're at, and be happy and be content, very content. Neither one of us would be content stopping what we're doing. Yeah. But I said, we could be monetarily, because most people think you do this for the money, and it's not. I mean, sure, the money is the byproduct of having fun, because EOS teaches doing what you love with the people you love, making a difference in whatever that means to you, being appropriately compensated, and have time for other passions, which I know you have a few of your own, besides just the robotic lawnmowers or the grounds maintenance, the green industry side of your business. I know you got a few other things going on, as well as do I. But we could stop where we're at, and monetarily we would be fine. But my joy and the company around me's joy is to seeing those people go far beyond what they ever thought possible. Like I have a partner that runs my Weed Man side of the business, and to see what he came from and how he grew up, and to see how he's living his life now, that's joy for me. That is true. Like, look, and not about because we just opened the door for it, and he has grown it to pretty soon within the next year or so, he'll be a $10 million enterprise just on his own. And it's incredible what he's done with that business. And he'll tell you it's all because of his team as well. But just to see what that success, and then he's got his team around him, and to see what those people have been capable of doing and capable of their growth. I mean, some of them have worked here since the time they were technicians, either just out of high school or just out of college, and now they're running entire branches. So it's that seeing others succeed is where my love is. And sometimes, the businessman gets a bad rap. Oh, you're just doing this it's not. You're just doing this for yourself. You're doing this to glorify yourself. And that's what the day that this business becomes an exercise in ego, I'm out. Like, I wish there were many a days, and I told you this before, and we've talked about this. I wish it wasn't named Reinhart, because it was never about an exercise in ego one day my brother and I had to decide what to write down on a piece of paper, but this was never about an exercise in ego, about glorifying the Reinhart name. It wasn't about that. It was just kind of an accident how we arrived here.
Yeah, I know. And that's why, we have talked about that. That's why with AOS, I did it AOS, because I wanted it to have zero to do with me, and more to do with my people that are part of that team, and at the end of the day, I mean, it's easy with the family name to kind of say, we're the group. Like I always say, this is the group we call Langton, and the people always respond to that well. But it's about creating opportunity, right? I mean, that at the end of the day is what we're doing. And you said, a lot of business owners get a bad reputation. And the problem is society looks at the stock trader or the huge publicly traded CEO that pays 10 million but lays 100,000 people off. That's not the small business owner. We're creating local opportunities for people. And what happens for me is, and I know this is going to be the same for you, so I'm pretty much putting words out that I know are in your mouth out, but basically saying, man, look at this guy. Look at like I'll tell you, Hugo, like my maintenance director, was a chef at Applebee's when he came to work for us. And you want to talk about a hustler? I mean, just hustles. And my brother and I were literally like, yeah, we have to get him trained up to get him in a position so he can be making more money. So it's like you then find yourself wanting to expand, sell more work. So you need another director to keep this talent, right? And so that's what small business owners do. Small and medium business owners, so because your people are your family, so, well, to keep moving on, because this is just turning into a Joe and Todd conversation. This is truly the stuff Joe or Todd and I talk about. I want to ask you, so far in your life, was there like an aha moment for you? Where did that moment hit where you're like, yeah, this whole entrepreneur thing is for me? Was it selling the candy corn? Where did it hit?
Well, it was, so we grew up on a family farm, and we had a side patch of sweet corn. And one day we set up a couple, I remember, you remember setting up a couple concrete blocks and a tabletop and a piece of plywood. And I think it was $1 a dozen at that point in time, way back in probably the early 80s. And just sitting along the roadside selling, and all of a sudden, it dawned on me then. I don't think I was probably 11 or 12 years old. And I'm like, I want to own my own company. And I always did. And I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had that drive in me from day one, and grew up on a farm. And, we very early on, my dad didn't own a lot of the land that we farmed. And I knew there wasn't much future in production agriculture if you didn't own the land. And that's why we put the ad in the paper. And my brother's a couple years younger than I am, and he didn't even have his license when we started the business. So my first year, my mom and dad actually drove him around from property to property just to mow lawns. And the second year, I was out just doing side jobs, working for just local people, doing outside landscape work or helping out on a farm, or just doing nasty, horrible jobs that my dad would gladly farm me out to any other farmer around that wanted some strong back and strong labor. And the green industry actually is, some people call it hard. I call it easy compared to the way I grew up.
Bill and hay doing that kind of stuff. People don't realize that's not
cleaning hog pens, done it all. And it just,
well, when I played football in Northern Illinois and we had to play DeKalb, right? We always had to play DeKalb. And we always would say like, yep, those are the big old farm boys, because they're just naturally strong, well-fed, drinking a lot of milk, eating a lot of eggs, and throwing a lot of hay. There was a different type of strength from that farm boy, So, what do you consider a non-negotiable at Reinhart's?
Oh, we've got a couple. Integrity. Safety is number one for us. That's the base of our whole core values. Safety is the absolute thing. Everybody goes home the same way they came to work that morning. That is, we run OEM. I see these landscapers out with flaps up on the side of their decks and just chainsaws, and it's just running without safety gear, and it just makes me cringe every time. We had a local competitor that actually rolled a mower over about 2 years ago now maybe, and ended up an individual died. And my worst nightmare, right? Like, that is, the safety is number one thing. Integrity is next, and it is, you have to, right? during this last couple of years is, everybody's like, oh, do we lower our standards because we're so desperate for people? I said, no, we find a way to do the work with the people we have, right? We're not going to lower those standards. And the other big part of, there's four. Innovation is our next core value. That's if you look at it like a house, the foundation is safety. One side is integrity. The other side is innovation. And the top is professionalism. The roof is professionalism because it keeps everything else out. It's what holds it's what holds the whole organization together as well and covers everything. So integrity is important. The innovation, we're right on the leading edge all the time and sometimes it's bleeding edge, and we understand that. But then the professionalism, every one of my employees goes out every day in uniform. It's one of the things that it's non-negotiable, and they're collared shirts. We look like an extension of the customer out on their property when we show up. So that's just the beginning of the professionalism, but that kind of gives you our four core values.
Yeah. I could almost see a new company logo out of that, Todd. The whole professionalism on the roof and the pillars, and
it wasn't my idea. I adopted it. We adopted it from some Toyota stuff. So I can't take credit for it.
Well, good. So I like it anyway. So how did you? So we know how you got into the landscaping. When did you start getting into the snow? Was it right away, or did that come after?
So we started, in 86 to about 92. We didn't do much commercial work at all. Not really much at all. We had 350 residential accounts that my brother and I, a few other people were mowing. And I was in college at the time. I graduated in 92. And like I said, Chad's a couple years younger than me. And we had we started going out and visiting as many what we consider the professionals at that time. Some bigger ones down in Atlanta, Florida, Arizona. We went out and visited them. And we really started to see, the guys that had gone bigger. The guys that were continuing to scale were servicing the commercial client. So we came home after, I think it was 1992 or 1993. We came home from a conference we'd been at where we'd been on a couple site visits, and we actually had what we called the burn the ships moment. And that winter, we fired every residential client we had, and we went commercial. Couple years after that, one of my commercial clients said to me, basically, if you're taking care of our grounds, you're also doing our snow. So turns out we're in the snow business. So that's how we ended up in the snow business, and then just continued to scale. And so we're about 33% maintenance right now, and 33% snow. And then the other 33% is a combination of enhancements and design, build, install. And enhancements are what we call enhancements are landscape improvements done for our commercial contractual maintenance clients. So we track that number very closely, and we watch it. Because we can predict it. We can predict as a percentage what that commercial client will buy as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that's much the same for us. That's what we've realized about commercial. It's predictable. They have the same budget year after year. So their annual spend is going to be very similar for the most part. Whereas with residential, you never know. Did they get a good tax return? Did they not? Right. There's too many variables, So yeah. So the this is a good segue then for getting the cutting edge things that you and I are so similar on. So you said something earlier about with how it was hard to find people. The question was, do we kind of dilute our pillars or our values for the new people? You said, no, we do it with who we have. How are you tying new technology into basically doing just that?
Well, of course, the autonomy is well, let's go back just a little bit. One thing that I found extremely important, and we had a software company for a while back in the late 90s, early 2000s that tracked. We were writing software using the Apple Newton to track our service vehicles long before Boss, Aspire, or any of the other ones even existed. We had mobile in the trucks, and so that was one of our first adaptations. We've been doing mobile since for almost 8 or 10 years now in the trucks. The first wasn't so good, but as the cell phones and the data plans have, and the data coverage has gotten so much better, that has been a huge improvement. And that's one of the first pieces of technology. What we feel is one of the most important things is tracking every job, tracking every travel time. We now have cameras forward and rear facing in every truck that gives us alerts if someone isn't wearing their seatbelt, because it goes back to, one of our safety pillars. If someone is distracted driving, seatbelt. So we're running contests to see, to have the best driver, or who's the best driver in the company, and they're rewarding for that. But as the labor shortage that's beginning to happen, I think some of it happened pre-COVID as the gig economy really started, as people realized that they can go out and work for themselves and make a I don't know whether it's a great living, but they can make a living doing the DoorDash, doing the Instacart, things like that. So, and then we started competing really for every. I mean, it used to be, people were in the restaurant industry, or people were in the green industry, or people were in the concrete industry or the building trades. But as that labor pool started to dry up, I think a lot of guys, as the wages begin to go up, a lot of guys begin to switch between industries. And so now we're really competing against those other industries for labor and for talent. And so what we started seeing, what you and I said a year and a half ago now, when we started down, you've been down the autonomy road for a lot longer than we have, but when we came up and we did a site visit with you and saw what you had rolling, that's when the light bulb just came on, and we said, oh, this is here. We always thought, oh, this is 5 years in the future, right? You hear that always about the fusion reactor. It's 5 years in the future. It's been 5 years in the future for the last 40 years. But the automation, and it's going to change everything about this business. It will change how many people go to a property. It will change what size truck. It will change whether the truck is battery operated or whether it's internal combustion engine, ICE. It's going to change everything. You're going to be able to monitor your services better. You're going to be able to, what we call here is leveling the flow. You're not going to have this spring mass, like just 100 days of hell is what my guys refer to it as. You're going to be able to begin to eliminate a lot of those type of throttles in the system. We think we can take over a lot more properties. We can do probably double the properties we do right now with the same number of people, which will lead. Initially, it is a much higher, as we've discussed. It's a big investment in. I don't even want to call it iron at this point. Plastic. Plastic most very little iron on that on the machines, but it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be interesting just how the models shake out. I think I'm working with a brand new property right now, a huge apartment complex that's going to build, and we're trying to get them to put in the electrical from day one to run the mowers. So if we can zone this out and get it done correctly, there won't be much cost besides going and plugging the mowers in.
Yes.
If we can get it.
No, that's the way to do it. And so, you brought up the 100 days of of hell or whatever you guys call it. But, a lot of people that are not in this industry, and this is for, engineers and those people listening, like I've always said, they don't understand the environmental pressures that landscape professionals deal with. We run out of days in the week sometimes when it rains 3 or 4 days to cut grass and catch up on Saturday and Sunday, and so, yeah, when you look at it, you'll be able to do, like you said, double the amount of properties, and then the properties you're doing will be better than your local competition, right? Because you're doing it more often, and your people will be able to focus on the detail work that we often have to skip because we don't have time because we're just trying to keep up with the grass, and the one thing that, I always like to kind of say, so I always say I'm a middle market landscape professional. We're definitely not small, but we're not a Brightview, and that's a good thing, I think, right? But the reality of it is this automation market is made for the middle market professional. And because, you brought up, it's a big investment, right? The middle market landscape professionals have the opportunity and the ability to invest in the automation. The really large landscaper has to get a board to approve it. And the smaller landscaper maybe just doesn't have the credit, so I'm sure, since me and John have been talking about it, I'm sure you and Chad are talking about that also. The opportunity to expand is unbelievable because of the position I feel we're in, and I'm sure you feel the same way, Todd.
Oh yeah. There's no limit. Look, the complaints alone, you start talking, let's go down the list in the spring or anytime, right? Clippings. When the grass is growing, 1.5 inches a week in the clippings, right? And you can only get there every 7 days because that's the model to make money. We can't mow it every 3, or you're running out of occurrences. Like we started almost 2 weeks early mowing here. Now we're going to have to manage the rest of the year in our contracts of running out of occurrences. Well, that doesn't happen with if the automation is already in place and already running. We got them out, we got them running, but we're starting in our detail work. That's the first complaint, is the clippings. Second complaint, right? It's wet, you're going around the trees, you're peeling up the grass with the zero turns. I don't care how good you are, it's happening. Next thing you're doing is, you've got the other issues of turning around on driveways. That happens, whether you leave the black marks. You're smiling because it's you've heard them all. You guys got to be more careful. You got to this, that. And you're like, you don't understand, you don't, especially with the homeowners associations, right? They don't want to pay $1 more to have the front yards push mowed. They want you to do as fast as you can, get in, get out, make it look fantastic. But they're not willing to go, oh, we want to pay more to mow the front yards with a 21-inch push and have it bagged off, or some crazy thing that they do. We're not willing to pay $1 more, and we're only accepting the lowest bid, but we want the highest quality. And so this is what I keep going back to them with, is we've got several right now that are going to start adopting at some point this year. We're going to start doing sections of the HOAs with robotics. And like, you're going to notice a massive difference. It looks cut every day. You may not have the striping that you once had, but it's going to look cut every day, and you don't have your top 3 complaints. I eliminated. So do you want to complain, or do you want to, you're right? Because I think sometimes they just want to complain. I don't think they have enough to do. So sometimes their complaints are simply because they want to have a meeting and justify their existence on the board. But that's just me.
Yeah, but the complaints are easier to manage when there's less things for us to manage. So listen, if you have a robot mowing every day, the next thing they're going to complain about is the grass maybe looks a little bit too dry. Well, that's an opportunity to say, well, you don't have an irrigation system, but I'll sell you one. Or they're going to notice things like, okay, well, now I need mulch because the grass looks great, but the beds. I look at everything that's happened for me in automation is an opportunity for them to focus on other parts of the yard or the facility. And what I found is if something looks cut every day, and by the way, that's what's interesting, and it's important to say, because I'm so happy you and I we think alike. So it was really easy for everybody listening when Todd and I met the first time, and I showed him what we're doing up in Illinois, and he saw the grass cut every day. This was like, boom, no brainer, because we all know there's companies that have automation that you can trailer them around. And Todd, you brought up earlier, it's going to be smaller trucks, smaller trailers. And this is, like I said, I mean, I told Todd the other day, I'm starting an advisory board and he's going to be on it, because we both identify and we see the same things, because there's all these companies trying to come out with the things that already are in the industry, but then we still have to trailer them around and move them around. If you use the smaller automation and you leave it, it looks so pristine that people want everything else to look that good. So and Todd, I know this is going to happen for you because it's already happened for John and I. We start to get people calling to do more enhancements than they normally would.
Well, that's our goal. Is there's going to be either design, all the landscape design. In fact, I was working on another one last week where it's a commercial client moving into a new building, and we're designing the landscape to work with robotics day one. And you and I mean, in the industry, they call them dedicated or deployed, right? Deployable. I'm not sure I like that word best, but you either have dedicated to the site or you're deployable. I've gone, Chad and I had this internal debate because he liked the deployable. But when you run the model out, the dedicated, to me, make a lot more sense. It actually, I think it's a lot stickier with the client. The ones we went out, reinstalled the mowers this spring, and the client didn't even think twice about it. Like, we're not going anywhere else. Like, why would we even bid this out? Like, it's a sticky thing because, I hate to even go down the road of how sticky and what the fourth year of a robotic contract looks like and the profitability of it. I think there will be competition, but it's you are bidding against, you're going to have to put a lot of money in a deployment, in a dedicated system right up front, but the stickiness of it far outweighs that cost. Now, you have to finance it correctly. You have to have fairly deep pockets to finance. If you're going to deploy, 150 of them, 200 of them in a year, it's going to take some significant financial resources to do that. So you have to make sure that your bank or a finance company's on board. We can discuss a lot of those things, but the return on it isn't going to be 1 year. It's going to be 3-year great return, or decent return, and then 4, 5, and 6 before you start replacing. But imagine where the technology is going to be 4, 5, and 6 years out. I mean,
well, and so here's the thing. It's a lot easier to manage, so I know you're just like us. So at the end of the day, you said something way early on in the podcast. For guys like you and I, it's not about the money, but the money is how you keep score. Okay. At the end of the day, if I'm making money, we're winning. If we're losing money, we're losing and we need to win again. Right. I mean, that's what it comes down to. So it's a lot easier to win with automation because it's predictable. I know it's going to mow this many days. I'm going to deploy it this day. I might get, like I've told you before, at Langton, we average a 7% error rate. So I can manage 7% of the time I'm going to have a robot in error. Okay. And not only that, I can manage however many robots I have, how many technicians I need to do the resets. Now, the one thing I will tell people, and Todd's going to laugh when I bring it up, I'm surprised you bring it up yourself, is the only thing Todd and I disagree about is mow fleet, because Todd does not agree with the deployable system. And I constantly tell Todd, I didn't believe in it at first either, because I was stationary. But deployable, whether it's mow fleet, whether it's USR, whatever, it is going to be great to fill in the gaps.
Yeah, and I think that as the I mean, you look at where, hey, if we're talking about technology, and you look at where Chat GPT has brought us just in the last November, December, 6 months, 7 months, and this AI technology and some of the stuff that you and I have seen from the manufacturers, the smaller units with vision-based system, you look at where that's coming. I don't think that your swarm or whatever you're calling it. I know I give you a hard time about it, but the swarm mowing and where there's I get it because it's more off grid. It's stuff that it's hard to dedicate one unit to because it's either so small and you can't get power to that area. I understand it completely. I just think that as the technology increases over the next 2 to 3 years, the need for that is going to lessen. Like, I don't think that, I mean, some of the larger manufacturers are worried that the 60-inch mower, which is their bread and butter, these things are going to destroy that market. And they are, by the way.
Yeah.
They're done. I had this conversation with them about a month ago. One or two of the big ones that happen to be related, owned by the same company, but they keep having this argument. They don't want to destroy their own cash cow. And I agree with it. Like, it's tough for them. Nor do the dealers want to adopt a lot of these a lot of times because it destroys, like, if I don't have to walk into my local dealer anymore, I'm probably not buying, a lot of as a younger company, when it was my brother and I, you'd walk in and be like, man, that new blower would be nice to have. Man, that new string trimmer would be nice to have. Oh, look at all the stuff on the floor of my local dealer. Look at the things they have. Oh, yeah, new and shiny. Oh, I can buy this. It'll make me work faster. Well, because when you would go in to get your mower fixed or that type of thing, well, this eliminates a lot of that. So it's going to upend the whole model for the dealer and for the manufacturer.
Yeah, well, this is why it's kind of been slow to adopt. And, I mean, I don't normally plug my own companies on the podcast, but with you, I think we're close enough. I don't think you're going to care, but it's why the AOS model works, because you have to transition from I go to a dealer, see the stuff on the floor, figure out the stuff I need to buy, to I need you to come out and take a look at this property for me. You need to help me on this property. And the traditional dealer that's not what they're used to doing. As a matter of fact, they don't even understand. I mean, I was on a dealer forum that's on like Facebook, and everybody was like in a revolt. And Todd, this is no BS, where they said, join with us. We're not going to sell another Husqvarna robotic lawnmower until Husqvarna tells us how to pay for the insurance for when we go out and do the installs. Because, like, you pay a different workman's comp rate for your office staff than your outside staff. These small dealers, they don't even understand there's a different bucket they have to fill for that insurance. So then they get audited, and in their mind is just exploding, right? Because they get it in the audit, and they pay a higher premium then. So, and then you look and you say, okay, well, the manufacturers see that writing on the wall. So now they try to direct sell, and they say, okay, we're just going to go on direct sell. But
doesn't work.
They don't know how to make it work in our market, right? So, I've always said the best thing we can do is mentor each other, much like I'm helping you do. And by the way, I mean, it's a two-way street. I mean, it's important for people listening. Like when Todd and I talk, we're always exchanging ideas. We're talking about the software they're using and why they like it. And boom, sure enough, I call and I've got a demo with that software company, So, but that's the thing, it's great to work with other professionals, because this is just going to make our industry it's going to take us to the next level of professionalism. And what I hope, and I know, Todd, you can expand on this, is finally get our industry to not be seen as like the C-level grade of professional, because at the end of the day, I don't know why anybody sees like excavators, electricians, plumbers, and then they're like, oh, and then there's the landscaper. We manage so much more. We have so many more environmental pressures, so many more things to learn about with chemical applications and licensing and salt and all this stuff. So to me, it excites me because I think it's going to get the industry there. Would you agree with that statement in full?
100%. It makes us look like, I mean, really, we are, I walked into one of my meetings not long ago, and every one of my managers had their laptop open and had their iPad out taking notes, right? Taking notes on their iPad. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're a technology company that happens to be in the landscape business.
Yeah.
I have my own data analytics department here now. And I say that to people, and I've been on a couple landscape panels, and I've said that, and people, like, their mouths drop open. They don't even know what that means. And if you aren't doing data analytics right now, you're behind. Like, it is far, or have someone at least watching your numbers every single day, because the numbers tell, like you said, that's how we keep score. That's how we keep score every single day. And when I have my own data analyst, and I've wanted to put one in for about 5 years now. In fact, it's one of the reasons we switched our operating software from who we were at before to Aspire, is because Aspire gave me back-end access to the Azure database that we can data mine out of that every single day. So it's that level as this begins to switch, and you're always, I don't think you're ever going to get away from the, let's call them chucking a truck, right? I've heard a lot of terminology for those, and we were one. Don't get me wrong. Like, we were back in 92, 93, 94, we were one of those, or several of those, that played at that level. But you have to begin to differentiate yourself, and you have to get this level of professionalism that the robotics really brings that to an edge. We're actually working with one of our clients right now on getting a battery-powered van. We are committed to the battery side of the technology. We think that it's a huge, like, we want to get one of the battery-powered vans, because that's going to be our mobile service vehicle for all of the robotic lawnmowers. In our model, we don't see that the crews are ever touching those mowers. I was actually having a funny conversation with you about the other day that the mowers, we want to tailor we think we have a lot of fun here, right? We have fun and get a lot of stuff done. But we want our mowers messages, I know I'm getting a little off topic, but we want our mowers messages to come in to reflect kind of a human aspect, right? The mower's stuck outside all night long. We wanted to say things like, hey, I was out all night. I need some help to get home, or, something like that. Those messages that it starts to send, or, hey, it's too cold this morning, I'm not going to go to work on time. We wanted to tailor some of those messages, so it makes it a lot of fun for the branch. We like you, we're looking at a lot of government, and especially schools, to deploy some of these mowers, and we want to make it fun. We want to wrap them in the school colors. We want to turn them into we want the kids to be able to name them as mascots. And the client that I'm working with right now, I'm like, I don't even care if I get credit for I'm the one taking care of your property. You need to be using this to promote your schools. You need to be using this to promote it can be a fun human interest story, human robotic interest story, if you will.
Yeah. Well, it's, even as you're talking about the schools, I mean, I'm doing a green talk with the high schoolers, and that's the thing too. I like, they always tell people, and middle age, especially older people in our industry, we get it wrong, because you look at the younger generation of worker, and for the people that hear the show all the time, you guys probably get tired of hearing me say it, but they look at the new generation of worker as lazy, but they're really just kind of the work smarter, not harder generation. They've had computers with them to do all their homework. They didn't handwrite any research papers. They didn't type them out on a brother typewriter. They didn't do any of those things. So some of the things that I think we make mistakes as leaders is we want people to do it the way we did it, instead of stepping back and saying, show me a better way. Show me a better way, because if they show me a better way, or they show you a better way, as long as we can score it and see that it helps us win more, I promote it. And the reality is, when I interview a younger person and say we use automation, I think 9 times out of 10, they pick my company to work for versus the other chuck in a truck company.
Yeah. Separates you out. But if we had, had we taken that avenue of thinking over the years, we'd still be, landscaping with a 2-wheel drive John Deere utility tractor. Instead, now, I mean, these crew leaders like, these guys don't work as hard as they used to. And I'm like, as you stand on your $70,000 Toro Dingo with 9 attachments on it, and you're digging holes with the auger, right? We never had that stuff. Like, don't give me this technology. Well, don't give me this. They don't work as hard as you're standing on your Toro Dingo or whatever else, right? Whatever else, I remember plowing some of our first snow with, hardly any heat or not a windshield on a skid steer.
Yes. With plexiglass to the side. I mean, just to keep the shit from coming in your face.
And you were freezing to death in that cab if you didn't go out in a full Carhartt suit and walk up Everest boots, you were going to die. Yes. And now they're in there plowing in their Crocs and T-shirts. And you're like, what? Bitching if the radio doesn't work, And Bluetooth, they can't get their Bluetooth to the radio in their machine. And I'm like, don't tell me that kid doesn't work hard because you got so much to do.
So listen, I got to say something else too, because we just talked about it in a meeting the other day. I also had to remind some of my leaders that were complaining about it that as a leader myself, the one thing I've always recognized, and I actually just wrote a podcast the other day that said this, that, if you want to innovate and come up with a new idea, give the laziest person in the company the opportunity to do it.
That's a good idea, right? Because they'll figure it out.
Find the way that the least amount of work to get it done, right? So when you look at it, I can't tell you how many people throughout my life I promoted because I'm like, well, they're definitely not a laborer. Let's see if they can run people. Now, I know that sounds terrible to say, but this is the truth also in our industry, is there's a lot of people that are very intellectual people that just don't like to swing a sledgehammer or a shovel.
Yeah.
But they are brilliant people. And I literally can take those people and be like, okay, here, can you pick up a 30-pound automatic mower? Oh, yeah, I can do that. Hey, we're good. I'm going to teach you how to do automation. And they're happy, and it's happy because I don't have an employee.
It's the controller generation.
Correct.
You look at how the military is designing most of their weapon systems right now, and you'd swear, like if you just YouTube some of the controls on the advanced weapon systems in the whether it's a aircraft carrier or a tank, right?
It's an Xbox or a PlayStation controller, and that's what everybody's doing because they know everybody that's going to get into this field can use that controller. And all these companies tried to make their own controllers, and they're like, "Why even make our own? Just use theirs." That generation already knows how to use it.
Yeah, the interface and everything else ought to just be set up like a game. Every time that we gamify our business and the things like I was talking about the driving earlier. We're working with a company right now. They had the start of a gamify when you drive, right? Well, first of all, everybody was resistant to like, you're just watching me every day. You want the cameras in the trucks and the GPS. And once we turned it to a game or started to go down that road, everybody embraced it like that, right? It was just this, oh, wait, I can win a prize by being the best driver in my branch. Sure, you bet. All of a sudden it changed the whole mentality of why are you just watching me to, oh, wait, you're going to reward me for being a good, undistracted, not eating, not texting while I drive? Yes. And they want to game. They want to gamify. You should gamify more. And it's something we actually just came up with a few weeks ago, and we're working on it more here at Reinhart's.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was actually going to ask you because we haven't done the cameras yet. And the reason we we haven't, and I'm just going to say this because every time I talk about it, half of my company's like, you do that shit, I'm out of here. I'm going to work for somebody else. And they get all mad. But I actually just told this guy the last time he said it, I said, so listen, if the camera was there to see that as you're driving, your eyes are closed and you just keep on popping them open every now and then, that would upset you that I want to make sure you get home to see your wife and kids. Like realize I'm not, what do you actually think I'm benefiting as the business owner by paying to put that there? I'm putting a forward facing camera to make sure if somebody pulls out in front of you, they're held responsible for the accident, not you. I'm trying to make sure you make it home at night. Like you said, that safety is one of your pillars, right? I want to make sure you make it home because we all work for our families. So if you don't make it home, what good are you doing for your family? But so that's the other thing is just breaking it down. But I do like your idea of making it a game because, sometimes you just can't speak logically to people when they're already so callous to the idea. They don't care. They think there's some sort of motive, for us to want to do it.
Right. And we had a claim. Now, to equip everything we have right now, and it's about $28,000. But 2 years ago, I didn't have the tracking on one of my, $15,000 equipment trailers, and it's gone. Never will find it again. It's someone stole it. Someone took it. Right. And then I started telling all the staff, all the operations people down to when that $15,000 goes away, we have to replace it. So take $15,000. Those are pay. That's a pay increase that's gone. Right. Yeah. And it hurts. But the other thing we had happen, it happened in February, and we got a call from a client that said, hey, our outside cameras show that you hit this car out in the parking lot. And it was probably every bit of $20,000 worth of damage to this car. And we had one truck in the parking lot spreading salt. We actually reviewed the footage, and it clearly shows that there was another car in the parking lot that backed into this car. And we just happened to be in the parking lot at the time. And we took it to all our staff, and I showed a picture on PowerPoint, showed the video to all three of our branches. And I said, here's why, gentlemen, here's why. I said, the guy that was driving the truck would have probably been fired, and great employee. But I'm like, you didn't report it, right? You had, because it always goes through your mind. You hit a vehicle and you didn't report it. And in my world, that's integrity. Like, I would rather know about it. If you have an accident and you tell us, it's now, if you have three of them, we're going to start to have a little talk, right? Yeah. If you have an accident and you didn't tell us, that's a terminatable offense. I don't care who you are, because it makes us look incompetent. I would much rather pick up the phone and call the customer and go, we hit a car in your parking lot last night, having go get it fixed. We got it taken care of. That makes us look like the professional, and that makes us have, that's the integrity piece of the puzzle. So instantly we pulled up the footage, and we had it all. And we went around this vehicle. It clearly shows we were nowhere near it. So we just said, you can try to turn in a claim on us, but we'll be more than happy to provide the footage that it wasn't us that hit the car, right? It clearly shows that the damage was done when we went around the car. I don't know what to tell you. And then they came back and they're like, no, you guys hit it. And I'm like, we didn't. And you should probably ask this other vehicle, the other vehicle that backed out of the parking spot in front of it. You should probably have a little discussion with that guy and see if there's any damage on his vehicle. So right there, the system probably costs us $28,000 to $30,000 a year to equip everything. We paid for at least half of it that day.
Well, and it's amazing to me that they, even when they saw the camera, Todd, that they still disputed that you hit it, because
insurance-wise, we can't. We told them we couldn't, that if it comes down to an insurance claim, we will provide the footage. There's some weird things in Illinois, and we don't record voices, but we're just like, we didn't hit it. If you think we did, we'll provide the footage if you're going to try to turn in a claim. But it wasn't us, so go ahead. There's some, we said that's an internal footage, and there's some policies, but it's to protect our people as well, right? We're not going to just provide anyone footage that asks for it outside of the company. So and that makes them feel a little bit better, makes the employee feel a little bit better about it too. Like, we're just not going to supply you footage for the fun of it. Like, if you want to bring a claim, be our guest, we'll show the footage when we need to.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, even when we GPSed our trucks, we had the employees hated it. Oh, now you're tracking if I'm speeding and this and that. But
no, it's tracking if someone steals it. Yeah.
Well,
just look, $8,000 equipment trailer just gone. Like,
well, and not only that, I told them we're tracking things like idle time. I mean, here's what's crazy. You have a gallon an hour. Okay. And when you have 100, 150 trucks, okay, the thing that people don't think about is 150 trucks, that's 150 gallons an hour. Okay.
Yeah.
At $4 a gallon, that's a ton of money, or when you look at, like you said, theft, when you look at the diesels now with the DEF fluid, letting them just sit and idle, it clogs the particulate filters and the skid steers too. It's like I don't know if yours has it, but one of the things we were talking to our provider about was to be able to actually show when it's at high RPM, because the problem with the skid steers now, the guys like to throttle them low and it clogs the filter during snow removal. So it's just a management tool, and so yeah. But so we are just flying through the time, I realize, and I haven't even talked about your background and things you like to do for fun. So we might have to have another podcast to keep going at this point. So just tell me, give the audience some background on you outside of the work, Todd. Like, what do you like to do for fun? Tell me about you when you were growing up. Did you play any sports?
Oh, I wrestled. It was my main sport. Played just a little bit of football in high school. Didn't do much. The business took off in '86, and I was still junior in high school back then. And by the time I got to college, the business we worked, everybody's like, oh, 15 hours is a huge load. Well, we were working 60 hours a week, and I was carrying, full load, and not yay for me, right? Not, oh, this is me. I just don't want to hear someone complain, well, I couldn't get an education because I was working. I'm like, crap. Like,
yeah,
we're just like you with football, right? You probably practice 40, 50 hours a week, whatever, gym and all the other stuff. And
I did football and still work full time at Best Buy. So yeah, totally. Yeah.
We're going, but we sound like the old men now. These guys don't work. We're like the two guys.
That 7 miles uphill in a snowstorm.
We're the two guys in the Muppets up on. We're those two guys at the moment. You guys don't know anything. So that's that was my background, and always the technology. Like I said, that we started the software company while we were doing the landscape business to track the the people that we have. It was to do the same thing that it's doing today. We were just way ahead of the curve. They had there was no such thing as wireless at the time or data plans on your phone. So the terminology was sneaker net back then. So we had to pull all the data cards out of the vehicles every night and download them and then put them back in for the route the next day. But that was a big part. We do a lot of, right now we've got residential, commercial, and I recently bought my first small, I don't want to say, it's just the oh my gosh, we talked about it all morning. I had a meeting about this morning. Our first storage units. Got about a 100 unit storage facility we bought. So that's part of the portfolio now. That's an interesting business. But again, it was a paper managed facility that we brought we brought a lot of technology to it. Now it's managed almost solely online. You can rent a unit in the middle of the night. Doesn't matter. You put all your data in, gives you the code for the lock. But it's that again. I've learned a ton for my other business doing that. So
yeah, that's fantastic. So family, Tell us a little about your family.
So my oldest is at University of Tennessee, studying entrepreneurship and working on getting his accounting degree. My middle child is a young woman who is going to Illinois State University, and she's studying sales and marketing, agriculture sales and marketing. And my youngest is baseball playing 15-year-old that is a pitcher and a lefty pitcher and is loving life at the moment.
How about your wife?
Oh, my wife.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Todd, I could not let you leave her out if she listens to this.
No.
She's going to be like, what the heck just happened here, Todd?
So one of the best sales people we've ever had working here. This is a great segue, by the way. One of the most amazing salespeople that I've ever met, right, has set every one of Reinhart's yearly contractual sales, whether grounds and snow. She's set the record. Did it for a number of years. She worked as our weed man sales manager for a number of years, led the door knocking effort with kids out door knocking in the middle of winter. And she led that effort, multiple vans, you had to get permits, all this stuff. About 2.5 years ago now, we moved her primarily into recruiting and onboarding. And so now the best salesman in the company is actually now selling the company to potential employees. And that has been probably the single best move we've ever made. I married way up. And she's become such a huge piece of the puzzle. We built several tools. We've adopted, recently we switched over to Bamboo HR because of her and the admin staff really pushing the HR side of the business. It's again, building that team. It's like, we have to fix this. We need to up our game here, up our game there. And, while I typically don't shout out individual software or individual equipment or companies, it's just been we've had so much success just in our recruiting, but you have to have someone working on that part of the business every single day. When we left it to managers, they would get in such a bad position that then they would panic and hire the wrong people. Well, this way we have literally someone recruiting and watching, like most of our ads or our applications, whether it comes through Indeed or other places, we try to automate either answering them by text or we answer them by text within 5 to 10 minutes. Otherwise, these people are gone. I mean, they're looking for jobs right now. So it is, if you're considering that, it might be the most important position at your company if you're growing.
That's a great idea. So who was responsible for that fantastic idea in the first place?
It was actually kind of funny because I came into work one day and she kind of didn't mention anything at home, and she's like, well, I'm going to the office today. And I'm like, okay, I didn't think, right. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, she does stuff around the office from time to time. And I get here and like, what are you doing? And she's like, well, the operations team said we're hiring a full-time HR person or full-time recruiting and onboarding person, and we can't think of a better one. You're it. So this happened without me even realizing that it was happening. And I'm like, okay, so now we have a full-time recruiting and onboarding person. All right, that sounds good. Let me put it in the accountability chart and let's move forward. So that was, had we not had that, I can't even, it was pre-COVID when she first started doing that, maybe 6 months, 8 months. Had we not had that position, I can't imagine the mess we would have been in, because everybody was reeling during COVID.
Yeah.
And every ops manager, like, how are we going to do? What are we going to do? They're worried about getting the work done more than they're even worried about recruiting. I'm like, I look back and go, had those guys also had recruit, interview, onboard people responsibility, the wheels would have really come off. And so we're going to, in fact, Weed Man right now, our Weed Man side of the house, they have 3 full-time recruiters, one main and then 2 assistants. And we're probably,
I could see needing that at that side of the business, because that's a hard position to fill. I mean, it's licensed. They know what they're getting into in the first place, spraying, putting down fertilizer and doing chemical. So yeah, that actually makes sense that it's that many people.
I got one question. What's your top 3 podcasts you listen to?
Okay, so
you can't do your own.
Yeah, so what got me into podcast was actually my friend Gary Rabine's podcast, Ditch Digger CEO. So Gary is a mentor of mine. It's actually ironic. We live right next door to each other.
And so what podcast is that?
It's called Ditch Digger CEO.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
And now, you kind of put me on the spot. My other one is Green Industry Perspectives. And then I almost need to look at those are probably the only 2 podcasts that I really listen to. Now, I will say the reason that we do the clicks, okay, is like how our podcast does the micro quotes, is because that's kind of usually what I'm always scrolling is that, and that just comes up on my feed all the time. So yeah, I'm more of like a micro quote like scroller. But yeah, those are the only 2 podcasts I listen to. Gary puts out a lot of stuff, but I'm going to explain why I like Ditch Digger CEO so much, because Gary interviews billion-dollar people. That's his big thing, and I aspire to be a billion-dollar business one day. And everybody tells me it's not possible. And I literally take that constant, like, being told there's no way, and I just keep on. It's like my rocket fuel, to just keep saying, yeah, no, you don't. No one tells me it's not possible. But yeah, those are really probably. I mean, that's it. I mean, I honestly, I'm kind of embarrassed I didn't have a third one for you, Todd.
I try to get outside of the green industry quite a bit, and I have really. There's probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 that I listen to, but there's one that you need to start listening to called All In. And it's All In, 4 guys that are just amazing investors and founders of their organizations have built. That one, it comes out every Friday, but technology heavy, right? Always discussing AI, always discussing manufacturing. I mean, they cover every topic under the sun. The Sales Manager Simplified podcast with Mike Weinberg. We follow a lot of his sales methodologies, because you and I have talked, right? The green industry can sometimes get very incestuous. We can all be using the same. So I try to go outside for more sales, more operations, a lot of admin stuff. I try to get outside of the green industry for that. And my third one would be Built to Sell Radio. Man, it's when you build your company to sell, and we aren't, but when you build it to sell, you make it worth so much more money. And you hear these guys that have sold their companies for maybe, 7, 8, 9 times EBITDA, and why and how, and service companies like yours and mine, whether they're veterinary clinics or whether they're pest control and all that stuff. And you listen to what these guys and women and have done about scaling their companies. And real quick, you pick up so many ideas. I'll send a couple of them to you. And
I'll send them. Well, and the other podcast, I mean, I do listen to Joe Rogan's podcast every now and then, but that, I mean, that I was actually thinking, like, why didn't I say that right out of the gate? But I don't like subscribe to it. I don't watch it religiously. I kind of cherry,
right?
But yeah, no, I would actually I should actually listen to those, because, like I said, I mean, it's what made me start this podcast is Gary's Gary's was so inspiring to me because he's just like you and I. I mean, he started from nothing, kind of built it up, and I was helping Gary run for governor also, back when, so yeah, pretty cool. And he's had some really cool guests. Matter of fact, that's what actually made me put our core ethics committee together, was listening to the guy from Tasty Catering on Gary's podcast. So, so yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot you can learn from podcasts. There's a lot of people that are willing to talk about what they do. I'm not much of a reader, but I do want to read the book you recommended, and I actually want to have my team read it.
Man, they're Audible is your friend. I mean, I probably consume maybe 1 to 2 books a week. And then lately I've been doing more of the podcast because it's especially for the technology side of things, it's changing so fast, so rapidly. And how can I bring other, because really the robotic technology in the lawnmowers is adapted from other places, right? Or adopted, whichever you want to use. But it's a lot of the same tech. So I try to stay current on a lot of the other tech, so then I can see what's coming.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me right now, it's crazy because I'm doing so many things that, I mean, Audible is stuff like that. Yeah, no, I mean, building this house right now. I mean, actually, as I'm doing the podcast, I'm in Door County right now, so yeah, but I don't know. My GM asked me if I was going through a midlife crisis the other day, because he was like, man, you're just doing everything right now. And I'm like, actually, after I had COVID, I realized that you never know what our expiration date is going to be. And there's a lot of things I feel like I need to accomplish. But
I've always heard that it's the dash. It's the, on your tombstone, it's the start date and the end date. And what matters is that dash in between.
I like that. Yeah, well, that is what it is. Actually, speaking of things that with automation, I should actually invite you to do this with me. So just the podcast before, it hasn't aired yet, but there's a guy that has automation that cooks in Naperville, Illinois. So you and your brother could bring your wives up to Naperville, or if they don't want to come up, just you two and the three of us can go out. But you can literally go to this restaurant. And robots will make the menu, or you can give it a recipe and the robot will make your recipe for you in their restaurant. So
that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so
might have to make that trip.
Awesome. So, all right. Well, I usually end with, what do you want your legacy to be? So.
Wow.
Yeah, see, I knew I was going to be able to get back at your ass for the 3 podcasts. You're the only guest I've ever had that asked me a question. I'm going to have to start to be a little bit more intellectually prepared.
I've the podcast I've listened to, that's always one question that I really enjoy, because it gives you that, what's your top 3 podcasts? What's your top 3 YouTube channels and your top 3 books that you've read in the last year? And boy,
so all my YouTube channels are about outer space, by the way. I'm like a total geek for like interstellar, like star formation and black holes. Like that's all my YouTube stuff. That and Corvettes. I'm like a total car guy. But
oh yeah. So if I had to go my YouTube channel, it would be. Do you watch Hoobie's Garage?
No, so I subscribe to that Emily Hart girl that does.
Yeah. Emily Hart, her Hartford. Her. And I don't know. I've raised all 3 of my kids. At least one of them have the entrepreneurial gene. Probably 2 of them. One's an amazing visionary. The other one, she's going to be an integrator and a leader. You can already see it. Don't know where the third one's going to end, or end up. But the legacy. But I want it to be more than that, right? I want to see. I want Reinhart's or Weedman, our Weedman side of the house, or the property management company, the legacy that you leave behind, I want that to always to find people with, and that's our typical model. We find the people with a hard labor background, that know how to work and that work ethic, and show them how to succeed farther than they ever thought possible in their lives. I want to show, right? I want that people come to work here. In fact, I have, and it would be, I have it right here. A husband wrote me a letter about the impact that Reinhart's has made in his wife's life and in their home life, and the difference that he has seen in his wife since she came to work here. And this thing will probably remain on my desk until I leave here. Not to be framed, but it's something that I look at every day to go, that's the impact. That's the legacy. And I want, you and I both, we pour a lot into a lot of people, and they may leave us, right? And I used to get more offended than, because it's almost like, man, you could have done so much here. You could have run a branch. You could have run, and you see, because I try to see that potential in everyone. And then they leave and you feel almost betrayed. And it used to
broken up with. I've often said it's like getting dumped. That's how it feels for me.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And we have to fight that. You have to fight that. As you begin to scale, especially, you have to fight that. You get jaded. And most other business owner and most other people, like my life group or different groups that I'm a part of, because you can't go complain to your office manager or your operations manager about the things that you and I talk about. Like you can't go have those conversations with employees. You can't have those conversations with other people that just work 9 to 5. It's a very difficult, like you said earlier, bringing back what you said was the loneliness, right? It can be lonely because you don't have many people to share your alligator. Like, I'm out fighting the alligators today. I heard a podcast not long ago. The guy was talking about he has 3 levels of friends, and he woke up one day and he told his wife that he's like, our current friends are done, because his business just succeeded beyond where he ever thought it was going. And he's like, not that we have to dump our current friends, but I need a level of friends that basically are above me entrepreneurially, like they're running their businesses at even a much higher level than I'm running. I have people that I'm in the alligator pit with, and you and I are talking like our businesses are very similar. Like, yes, we can learn from each other, but this guy up here is operating on a whole new level. And we both know these guys, right? And then you have these people that you're investing in to help them in their entrepreneurial journey. And man, that hit home with me. I'm like, yes, those 3 levels of people that we can have an impact at each level.
Yeah. Well, and what I found, and I'm sure you found it too, is when I first got started, a lot of the people in my older friend group, they just like to give me a bunch of crap. Oh, that's the dumbest thing ever. Oh, you're. I mean, I heard it all. You're the wrong color to be a landscaper. You're this. It's just stupid shit, right? And then when you start to become successful, you go through the phase of, hey man, good for you. Yeah, I mean, hey man, that extra money, that's probably pretty good. And it's like, the extra money, it's my livelihood.
I mean,
this is my passion. Like, I pour everything into this, And then when you become successful, then you start to notice, social media is the worst for it, because you notice that they're having a birthday party for their kids, but you didn't get invited, or they're having a housewarming party, but you didn't even know they moved, But then if you put something out that you're having something at your house and you don't invite them, they'll call and be like, "What? I'm not good enough for you." And it's like, man, you made the decision when you had the party 2 years ago when you didn't invite me, So yeah, I mean, that's the thing for me that I found, but it was hard for me to figure it out. But then, I was at a party once and everybody was complaining about the 9 to 5 stuff.
Yep.
And then I talked about something that's happened with me, and the person responded and said, "Oh, rich person problems. And I don't see myself as rich because I've not achieved the level that I want to achieve yet, and
I don't think we ever will.
No, we won't. It's like a blessing and a curse, And the one thing I tell people too, with guys like you and I mean, a lot of it's monopoly money, right? I mean, it's tied into assets. It's things rolling down the road, So anyways, not to go too far off this road here.
But do you know
it does. It gets. What's that?
Speaking of which, do you know that Illinois, along with California, and this is going to be, it's funny you should mention this, Illinois and California do not recognize accelerated depreciation as the same in Illinois as the federal level.
Since when?
Turns out 2022.
Well, I mean,
and only you and I and every other business owner, once you pass a certain, because we had to buy all that equipment this year for snow removal because, but it turns out that I now have to keep 2 sets of depreciation schedules, one for the state, one for the federal.
So usually, I don't know how you normally do it. We usually 5-year with accelerated in year 2. Is that usually how you do it, or did you try to?
It depends. It depends. But Illinois does no longer. No, they didn't adopt any of the federal accelerated depreciation schedule.
Yeah, man, I don't know what the hell's going on with this state. I mean, I have to say,
that's all. We could do another hour on the state podcast.
I know listen, you and I, we should just start our own podcast together, talking about the YouTube spin-offs. So this should be like the Joe and Todd hour. No, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, this is one of the things that I talk to Gary about all the time is people don't understand actually. So Lexi, my friend Mike, since we're way over anyways, and he probably will put this into 2 episodes. Sure. Small world, show how small this world is. I get a message from Todd that my literal best friend, this guy has been by my side.
I picked up now what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. He has been by my side since I was playing football. We literally were the people that kept each other in doubles. If I wanted to quit one day in doubles, Mike would be like, dude, you can't quit. You're too talented. Then the next practice might be like, hey, man, I think you were right yesterday. We should quit. And I'd be like, the fuck, we're quitting. What are you talking about? Right? So anyhow, I get a message from Todd that from a picture of his daughter. And I'm like, what the heck? What are the chances? Because she was dog sitting for you, right? Right? Yeah. Is that what she was there to do?
Yeah, my wife is her small group leader at church. Your best friend's daughter is, and my wife, like, they're very, very close. It was just I'm like, hey, do you know this? Because one day she says, as we're getting ready to leave on vacation, she says to me, you really remind me of my dad's best friend, Joe. And I went, Joe? She's like, Langton? I'm like, well, it turns out that I say, in fact, you and I had talked earlier that day, and I'm like, this phone number right here. She's like, or Joe, and she's like, you got to be kidding me. You 2 are friends. I'm like, small world.
Yeah. So anyways, okay. So and then talking about how small the world is. So he's also the friend that works for Caterpillar. Remember I told you I have a friend that works for Cat, right? Anyhow, going back to what I was saying. So Mike, though, he's a guy. He's a hard worker, works his butt off, does everything for his family. And when I try to talk about tax reform and the issues that Illinois has, where they just don't do anything logically for the small business owner, right? And Mike doesn't understand. Like when I talk about accelerated depreciation and the fact that it's like you take the money and you say, okay, yeah, we pulled in $1.5 million, but we bought this amount of equipment, so we depreciated this, and then when it all comes in, and you look at your Schedule E, you take the income and the depreciation, and this is how much money you make. You try to explain that to people, and no one understands. I feel like the people that are in Illinois, they have such a small reality of why the tax code was written in the first place
Yep.
That they want to abolish these things because they think people like you and I are taking advantage. But here's the thing I always try to tell people. Those trucks and equipment you bought, you paid sales tax on them. And that sales tax went to where you locally bought it. So it fuels your local economy. You have tax on the people. Okay. You've got Illinois, you got payroll tax and federal payroll or federal tax. Companies like ours are paying so many taxes. It's crazy. So when they do stuff like this,
property
first thing I think, property tax. The first thing I think is, how far is it to put someplace in Indiana? If I were you, I'd be like, how far is the Indiana border to put it in Indiana and just drive the trucks into Illinois? Because I could be in Wisconsin in 20 minutes.
Yep. I mean, so I read, listening to a podcast, one that I'll send you, the All In podcast. They were actually talking. These guys are national figures. In fact, they have one of the most popular podcasts on the internet. Next year, 80% of the Chicago's property taxes will go to pay. 80% of your property taxes in Chicago will go to pay the pension fund. Not the people currently working. 80%. It's an unfunded liability, and this cannot continue. And by the way, these pension funds are invested in what 5 years ago they considered blue chip. They're invested in all the office buildings in downtowns in the major metropolitan areas. So you tell me that 5 years ago, what these pension funds invested in is now worthless or underwater.
For COVID, none of those buildings are full. No, they're empty.
And so, but again, it's going to affect the green industry because these pension funds also invested in malls, also invested in strip centers, they have a lot of real estate holdings. And so in the green industry, this is why I listen to the wide, try to get a good feeling for the wide berth, if you will, the wide area of the economy, because it all affects the green industry.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, even talking about those pension funds and stuff like that, when Gary was running, he just didn't get enough traction because we were only able to raise a couple $1 million for him, and he just got way outraised by Billy. But
yeah,
this is another space where automation can just be so great. So when I've been trying to sell into Illinois and talking about Illinois, so this is going to turn into the dog on Illinois show. But I basically,
it doesn't take long for me to get there.
Yeah, if I try to sell automation to places in Illinois, they want to do like 5-year job studies, try to figure out how many people could lose their job, all this other stuff, right?
Oh my gosh!
And then you look at it and you're like, okay, this is not that difficult to figure out. But regardless, and one of the things I told Gary when I really was confident he would be our new governor was to say, listen, all the rest stops in Illinois, anybody that's driven down our highways, there's rest stops. I'm like, automate all of them. Look at how many people you're employing, which, by the way, if you stop at a rest stop in Illinois, take a look at, and I'm going to piss people off because maybe some people know people, but when I look at the people working at those rest stops, they're miserable. They do not want that job. They hate it.
No.
They can't stand it. Okay? Automate it. Because at least you start to change the roadmap. It's like, for me, it's like don't go and say, okay, yeah, you can't pay pensions. Okay, fine. You have an obligation, pay them. But don't keep doing the same thing. It is literal insanity. We can't fund what we have, and we're going to keep doing exactly what we've done, and we're going to keep raising the taxes until everybody wants to leave the state. And then we're going to be just like we were in Michigan, where they're stealing copper out of houses because everything's vacant, nobody's there. And then everybody leaves, and then they can rebuild. I mean, that's what it's going to turn into.
Well, you look at what a lot of those jobs are, and they're paying union scale. I mean, you look at what it costs to put a square foot of concrete in Indiana versus what it costs to lay a square foot of concrete in Illinois. Huge difference, especially on either federally funded or government funded. And it's unfunded liabilities, and we're in trouble. I mean, it is so we ran if you just look at, so I did this exercise with my oldest, that's University of Tennessee, and he, by the way, he fell in love with Tennessee once he got down there, and he's like, Dad, there's no state income tax, or it's really low. I don't remember which. And you just look at a lifetime. You look at a lifetime of just property, because he's an entrepreneur, and you look at, okay, so buying a home, buying maybe a commercial building, buying some self-storage, and you look at a lifetime of the property taxes you pay and the income taxes you pay to your state, and the 40 or maybe 50 years that you work, it comes out to almost $1 million net worth difference in the end. And you're like, why again will I start another branch in Illinois or buy another property in Illinois? And it just, and no one seems to get this. Like, no one seems to understand that as a business owner and entrepreneur, there's other states like Indiana's. I have an office over there with Weedman. Those people, you go into the DMV or anywhere else, and they're like, welcome to Indiana, right? How can we really help you? Illinois, they'll walk out of the back door when you're halfway through filling your order at the DMV. I mean, it's just this, I don't know. It's a culture thing.
Well, a lot of people in these states that accept this, they're just not well traveled. That's what it comes down to. Maybe. They come to accept what's happening because it's just where they live. I mean, listen, my own parents are victims to this reality. To them, Illinois is the best state ever. But if I ask them to come visit me in Fort Lauderdale, because I've got a place in Fort Lauderdale, they're like, I'm not coming to Fort Lauderdale. What? Florida? No way. I'm not going to Florida. It's crazy people down there. I'm like, no. I've never seen an unhappy person in Florida. It's endless summer. It's summer all year. There is no income tax. There's so much money in Florida because the people with money go there. And then for anybody that says trickle down economy doesn't work, well, the reality of it is when you go to a state where people that have more money than I'll ever dream to have, unless you get to your billion. Yeah, unless I get to the billion, right? But you see this, and everybody's happy, and then I come back to Illinois. I mean, I came back to Illinois Friday night, and Saturday I was instantly sad because everybody around me just looked pissed off. Everybody was pissed off driving. You go into the grocery store, people are pissed off. You cut in line. When I'm down in Florida, people are like, oh, you only have 3 things in your hand. Go ahead of me. Yeah, nobody cares. Well, it's so weird.
The problem is the great people, the ones that recognize this, the ones that look up and look around, the great people are leaving. And those are both customers. You look at Tennessee, University of Tennessee, their number one out-of-state person, their number one out-of-state student is from Illinois. Iowa's the same way. It's a brain drain. This state is getting annihilated by the free states around them. And I don't know how you ever, it's a culture thing. I don't know how you ever change this. I don't know how we ever go back to the point of that these politicians never recognize that we're in trouble. And it's a shame. It's really, I love my state, but I hate my government. I love my state, but I despise what the elected officials have done to it. Like, it's not.
Oh, the problem. Yeah. Well, and the problem is, truthfully, the problem that we have in our state is, there's 2 counties that have such a high level of population that they're always going to vote a certain way. Okay. And then that leaves the rest of the state in a disparaging way,
We're stuck.
Yeah, we're stuck. And the reality for me, and I say this all the time, is the reason people stay in Illinois is because of people like my parents. I stay in Illinois for 2 things. A, because my parents are in Illinois. I'll never leave. And I love my mom and dad. And that's the one thing about the Midwest is we're family people. Like that. Yeah. That's the one thing. Because that is one thing I'll say when I leave the Midwest is, people in Florida, they care about themselves. Like, they're there for them. They couldn't give a shit. Right. Yeah. But then the second thing is I am in Illinois for my people. Like, I am a servant leader and my people live in Illinois. And if I tell a lot of the people that live in Illinois that work for me, hey, we're going to move someplace else, they're like, I'm not moving. So I'll always be in Illinois. And that's the one thing that I think these politicians know is, well, where are they going to go? But I will say, as long as Costco stays in Illinois, I'm good. As long as these commercial companies stay in Illinois, I'm okay. But the minute they start exiting, well, we got a problem, So
when they exit, we don't. I always said if we were manufacturing, we would have probably already been gone, because we would have picked up and gone to a different state that's much more business friendly. And now we sound like the two old guys in the Muppets up in.
Yeah, but no, this is different though, because this is actually different, because if you're a younger person listening, the reason I've actually let us go down this rabbit hole, because this is not usually what the podcast is about, is because we did talk about mentorship and mentoring people, and this checks the box, because if younger people listening to this, too many young people are not involved in a deep way in politics. They're involved in politics based on what they see on social media. And social media filters our politics right now, okay? And there's very few younger people or aspiring or entrepreneurs going from the chuck in a truck to the next level that actually understand being involved in local politics, or at least making it to vote, is necessary for small business survival. Because if we don't talk about this kind of stuff on a show like this, people don't think it's important, but it truly is. I mean, like what you just brought up with the accelerated depreciation, that's important.
I know I took us down a total rabbit hole, which is what our conversations, where they usually go.
This is what happens. Yeah. But I get to appreciate that. Right. And that's two things. And these are the hats that most people don't realize entrepreneurs have to wear. Right. So and this is one of the things I always talk about in automation. If I hire an employee, and that employee is going to cost me $50,000 to $75,000 a year, right? They're going to cost me that every year. If I buy automation and I buy a couple $1 million in automation and I divide it up over 3 years, I know what I'm going to spend, which ends up coming out to be that cost of the employee. But the cool thing for me, and you're going to realize it, Todd, you already realize it because you're in snow, that I can't get many people to realize, and I probably shouldn't even say out loud, because I've gotten to the point where I don't want that many more people to realize, because I like that you're actually one of the few people that have come on my podcast and said you inspired Reinhart, because that makes me really happy, because I'm glad, because we'll better each other. You and I working together will better each other, and that's great. But this goes back real quick. This goes back to why you have to get out of your local market. If you're a green industry person listening to this or watching this, you've got to take your blinders off. You need to be going to every trade show outside of your industry. You need to be sitting in on seminars. You need to be you have got to get out. This is why you need to be listening out on your lawnmower. If you're a one-man operation or a two-man operation, between jobs, you need to be listening to podcasts. You have to learn. You have to learn and get outside of the green industry and get outside of your own market. Because if you stay in that own market, you end up, the enemy is your local competitor. You don't ever see the big guys, and I've been on one of the big players' jets. Not to say, woe is me, but to interview those guys and to talk to them and see what they're doing on rolling these businesses up is a way different perspective than what I had pre-doing that. No. And so this is why the automation, and you and I talk quite often, is you have to get outside your own market. You have to get outside your own head, and you have to get up and you have to look around. You wouldn't finish what I was saying, and everything you hit it spot on, is because if you really model, okay, like most people, when I'm breaking this down, they want to know what the cost per acre is, and I break down the cost per acre of mowing with a robot. But no one ever asks me to show them how much extra money they make on the backside with depreciation, because I depreciate all my robots. So there is another value, and I always laugh because like I did a show in Atlanta, and I watched one of the people from a manufacturer come over and take a picture of one of my slides. And what was ironic, Todd, was I was internally smiling because I was like, "You're not even capturing the depreciation."
No,
But you see, but that is the thing when you're talking about what you just brought up. Langton's got to stay in the state, but I could make AOS run off Florida.
you bet.
So that's what Illinois is missing.
And we're it just you get me going down this rabbit hole of Illinois again. It just is not a, especially tax day is shortly, so it's not a good subject for me. It just it's so frustrating because people have a choice and they're already, I mean, I read the other day 25,000 people have left the Cook County alone in the last year. I mean, that's a drain. That's a drain of taxpayers. That's a drain of
and that's more about more than taxes. I mean, I've literally gotten to the point where you have to decide what vehicle you're going to drive to Cook County in, so you don't get carjacked, because it's just acceptable. I mean, it's not prosecuted. You just it's just, it is what it is. Leave it alone.
And you aren't allowed to defend yourself. So
well, now in that, I mean, I pity anybody that thinks I'm going to follow that law, because let me tell you what. They try to drag me out of my truck, and I mean, I will probably get shot, but somebody's leaving with me.
Well, we'll leave that subject for offline conversation.
Yeah. So, but anyhow, All right. Well, with that, now we're going on our second hour, so I can really divide it into two. So, Todd, as always, great to talk with you. Yeah. I enjoy every minute of our conversations. I look forward to doing some of the big stuff that we know we have on the books to do together here very shortly. That we do.
Yeah. The one subject we didn't talk about was what your, I hesitate. This is the one I hesitate to even discuss, what your profit margin looks after, what your GP, your gross profit looks like after the mower's paid for in 3 years.
You want me to tell you what mine is currently?
No. You and I are just.
Yeah, I mean, it's the type of money where I think actually one day you and I might be able to start our own bank together.
Well, you're going to be on the east coast of Florida, and I hang out a lot on the west coast of Florida. We'll just drive across and meet each other for dinner.
No, I mean, it is.
We will fly. We will fly across and meet each other for dinner.
Yeah, because I do want a helicopter. But the thing is, I will say, and I'll say it. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll have the helicopter. You have the jet. So I'll cover the local, and you cover the distance. The thing about it is, there's only one fly in this ointment, and I'm going to say it out loud. Chris, microquote it and put it out. The only fly in the ointment for the landscape professional to be able to profit the way the margin looks today is the manufacturer coming in direct and ruining this, not only for themselves, but for the end user and for the landscape professional, that they really need to support their product, because without the landscape professional, their product will fail. And it'll fail because it doesn't pull weeds, it doesn't trim bushes, it doesn't fertilize, doesn't do weed treatments. And at the end of the day, they're great, but they do not provide customer service. And we, Todd and I, we run in a service industry where the customer just wants to know if they have a problem, they can pick up the phone, they can complain about the problem. They have guys like us or girls like us say, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, we will have somebody there tomorrow. Click. The minute you sell automation direct, you take that out. And that will be the only thing that messes this up.
The closest thing to a robotic lawnmower, and I've told every single client this, is an irrigation system. And when you tell me that Hunter or Toro or whoever else is going to sell a direct irrigation system to the client, and they're going to have their dealer come out and put in the system, that's insanity, right? And the robotic mowers are exactly the same. if you think as long as we're on this bandwagon, if you think you're going to sell direct to a client and everything's going to go right and hunky dory, and it's the only thing that's going to change is the products that you're providing my company as a manufacturer. It's if you try to do this direct or try to go, hey, we're just going to use the landscaper to put this mower, we'll install this mower for us, and we'll give you $50 an install. This is going to go very badly. Like, and I don't think right now, I don't think these lawnmowers thrive in a residential setting. I don't think they're a good residential fit. I think they're the perfect fit for the landscape. But this is why I don't think that the larger 60-inch robotic lawnmowers work. I mean, you try to tell me an area where you're mowing 2 to 3 acres at a time. No commercial site has that. Most of them are 4,000 square feet here, 2,000 square feet there. I think they need to be making a micro mower that will mow those smaller areas very cost effectively. Stop making the bigger mower. These people, I'm like, I don't need a bigger mower. I need a smaller mower. I need something that will mow 800 square feet, that it's cost effective to put that there for the next 3 years.
Because you got to look at the advisory boards that are getting made to make those mowers. So they're bringing people on that can't think differently. They can't remember the fact that the only reason the 60s and the 72s and now the bat wing type mowers that are getting made exist is because labor increases. So you have to increase production to match labor because we're at a ceiling of how much money the consumer is willing to spend. So you don't necessarily have to be big.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, so it doesn't need to be bigger. Smaller is better. It doesn't scale. It doesn't compact the soil. It doesn't leave the ruts like you talked about. Micro clipping, so it's smaller clippings going. And by the way, we didn't even talk about the safety. I mean, how many workman's comp cases? Everybody's always talking about how many workman's comp cases are created from people mowing on mowers. How many grinding wheels have blown up in somebody's face sharpening a lawnmower blade?
Yeah. What do the blades cost on our mowers? 30 cents.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, it's just you replace them and you toss them. So, these are the things that I try to inspire people. But the other thing that I am really becoming more passionate on inspiring, because I realize the time is now for landscape professionals that do listen to this show to realize, don't get stuck in the ADHD kind of moment. Because by the way, I mean, I think all entrepreneurs, we kind of suffer from the kind of a lot of static around us. So what's the best? But
shiny thing. We call it shiny.
Squirrels, shiny things, whatever. But filter out the noise for a minute and say, okay, we have strength as the landscape professional to go to manufacturers, and we have more strength together than divided, right? So, nobody ever gets a chance to ask me what I want my legacy to be. But I've always said, in automation, why I started Automated Outdoor, it was to bring together the middle manager, or the middle manager, the middle market landscaper. I've always said I speak middle market landscaper, and unite us, because we are a large segment of the space. And
unite us, I mean, we all have someone, but yeah,
but literally because fragmented, we're just going to pit against each other. And the problem is, if we're fragmented and everybody's trying to recreate the model, okay, well, then we're going to find ourselves in the same rut that we already are, where nobody knows what price they should be at. And the only person that wins is the consumer. The consumer is constantly winning. Even think about these eBridge reverse auctions that I've seen happen. I've done it myself, where it's you start out with your price and then everybody's bidding down from there. It's ridiculous. It is just a race to the bottom, and there's all sorts of industries that as a matter of fact, SEMA, Snow and Ice Management Association, we all share our pricing. In that industry, I've never had a problem pulling profit in the snow industry. The only industry I've ever had trouble pulling profit in is lawn mowing.
Yeah. Well, but the automation brings a whole new level. It's so one of the reasons I love fertilizer weed control is there is a significant barrier to entry. You've got to have your license. You've got to have a rinse pad. In Illinois and other places, different things, right? At least there's a barrier to entry. And you have to scale quite a bit in order to get, I think right now we have somewhere around 15,000 customers. They're doing 6 to 8 applications a year. But what the automation does is begin to create that same barrier to entry for the truck and the truck, right? Because if you're in it for the short haul just to make money for the next couple of years, you're not going to invest. I've got one client right now. I think it's probably $100,000 to get it rolling, maybe more but they're a long-term client. And I'm pretty sure that by year 3, year 4, it's maybe 150,000 that Joe and I are working together on deploying and dedicated.
Yep. It's dedicated.
But who else is going to play that game, right? There's some people, I'm sure. In fact, I was on an ILCA panel here a month or so ago, and I said, in 3 years, we have a stated goal at our company that there won't be another riding lawnmower that exists at our company. And the laughter that took place, maybe 50 other owners in the room. I'm like, you can laugh all you want, because I'm coming after your clients first, by the way. My clients were switching methodically and slowly, but if you are a green industry company, hopefully not my competitor watching this podcast, you should adapt. Our method is we're going to adopt robotics very quickly, and we're going out and trying to sell our competitor's client before, we're installing it our own, but why cut your own throat's cash flow, right? You should be going out and marketing to your competitor just as hard as you're trying to switch your own client.
Yeah, and I'll expand a little on that, is that your existing customer is likely going to renew with you year after year, because they already have been. If you sell a new customer in automation, it's really, that's the way to do it, 3 to 5 year contracts. So now you get this new customer, you basically tell them, here you go, here I am, this is what we're doing for the next 3 to 5 years. And boom, you've got them locked in and you're set. So yeah, it's sticky. Yeah. Well, and like I've said to people before, what caused the industry to stop giving multi-year contracts? Employee turnover. If you and I were just worker bees, okay, and 1 year I have a customer that loves Todd, okay, but then the next year they get Joe. Well, the customer wants to make sure they like Joe as much as they like Todd. That's why the industry has moved to year contracts. With automation, I can predict what they're going to get. I can tell people, if you like that robot I put there this year, you're going to really like it next year, because it's already programmed. It's already set up for the property, and you already know what to expect. It's really easy to get multi-year contracts. But
by the way, what we foresee this doing, I know we're in hour 3, and I'm sure they're going to cut a lot of this out, but I actually cleared my schedule because I kind of assumed this would happen. So think about this. One of our problems in our industry is not having year-round employees. Well, what if I can take 1 or 2 guys and I can double my properties? I can make more margin on those properties, but I can keep those guys employed year-round, because we're bringing back in the mowers. Maybe we're replacing batteries. Maybe we're doing all these things. We're cleaning up these lawnmowers. Maybe we've got 200, 300, 400 of them. And we have now these very professional, very highly skilled. They are my robot repair guy, by the way. They're my general lawn technician that has done all the, we can spread our bush trimming out further. You try to bush trim in between rains or the lack of rain in July. Well, now I can start my bush trimming much earlier in the season, but I can keep these less employees, and I can put them on year-round employment. So instead of having these laid off people, it's the model And what I said, we were talking about there earlier, the model of the green industry company, the model of the landscape company radically changes when you adopt the autonomous, when you adopt the robotic lawnmowers.
Yeah. No, it does. And I mean, like I said, it'll be interesting to see, how the industry goes. I think the thing that gets me so passionate, why I made the statement I made, 20 minutes ago, is
that all runs together.
There's just this. So there's a cycle in automation right now, and the cycle went like this. It's been working in Europe, so we're going to come and bring it to the United States. But then it doesn't work. Why? Well, they try to introduce it in a dealer model. The dealers said, screw that. We know carburetors and we do repairs, and you know how much money we make when somebody left fuel in their stuff for 6 months? That's where we're making money, right? Okay. So it sits. Then in 2016, here I come along. I see it. I say, cost per acre. Boom. You're looking at it wrong. What's the cost per acre? And we start rolling it. Then they start to see it work. Okay. But now what happens? They can't work fast enough for a lot of these manufacturers. So now they try to sell it direct. What do? They sell it direct, and then there's nobody there to keep it running, because at the end of the day, it fails. So then nobody's there to keep it running, and there's nothing worse for automation than a stalled out robot, right? So now they set it up, and now people like you and I have to overcome why one of your customers or my customers saw a stalled out robot down the street. And then you got to backtrack. Well, whose robot was it? Oh, well, that was the manufacturer direct. Well, if the manufacturer can't keep them running, how are you going to keep them running? That is the cycle that has to not be allowed to happen, because they've been fighting that cycle since 2016. So that's the only part of this industry right now I'm growing impatient. I have zero issue with other landscape professionals adopting it, because that's a rising tide raises all ships scenario. But I do have issue with the manufacturers, the people like you and I are buying the equipment from, also trying to get into our space. That cannot happen.
Well, and we're covering maybe some of the same ground, but it's going to ruin their model. It's going to ruin the model of this 60-inch zero turn. It ruins it. And they better figure out really quick on, if it were me, I would be running a second model, because it's going to change it. It just is. As this adoption catches fire, and if some of these models, the vision-based system, are coming, and they think it's a residential market, and I think they've completely missed. It is a commercial market where these things are going to upend an industry. I mean, I think it's the second. I mean, like we had the technology or the information wave. We had the industrial revolution. We have an information wave. We're going to see a robotic wave, and that's what's happening. It's going to radically alter every part of every industry. And now that AI is here, combined with that, it's going to radically change a lot of it.
So listen, the thing about it though is, okay, so their 60-inch mower is going to become obsolete, right? And actually, when I look at the spreadsheet, it pretty much takes anything from a 48 to a 72, and it's done. Right now, for an automation, if you're using bat-wing mowers, okay, yeah, you might still be a little more cheaper than a robot, but the reality.
Where can you get that? Where can you put that? I mean, there's
I know.
Maybe it's 5% of your properties.
No, I know. So Todd, I have people. I mean, this is what my day consists of, is trying to. It's like, I'll tell them what I just said, 48.72, and they're like, well, I'm mowing on this thing for $18 an acre. Okay, well, let's keep mowing on that until something else comes out. But anyhow, here's my point though, Todd. I don't know that the manufacturer's making that much money on that 60-inch piece of metal right now anyways. They're terribly back ordered. After COVID, steel prices went up. They were all back ordered. Half of those things are not made in the United States anymore. They're all outsourced to China. They can't get stuff in from China anyways. So if they're smart, what they'll do is just focus on getting enough production here in the United States to stop importing them from Sweden and Belgium and all the places they're coming from right now in Europe. And then just focus on moving that product out and making sure they have enough parts in stock for guys like you and I, because then it doesn't change their equipment distribution model. But I can tell you with certainty, they didn't become successful with that 60-inch mower by taking someone from the manufacturing company and putting them on it and mowing grass.
Right.
Okay. So that's my point.
They don't understand.
They're trying to come into an industry they don't understand. It would be nothing different than if you and I decided today, screw it. And I tell people this all the time. People tell me all the time, screw it, let's make our own robot. And I'm like, why? I'm not a manufacturer. Like I've never done that before. I don't ever have to deal with IP. I don't ever have to deal with patents and stuff like that. Well, I mean, really not. So why try to? What I know is service business. You said even with the storage units, it's easy for you to do because you take what you've learned in other businesses and you put them over there. So, anyways, that's it. I mean, like I said, that could be another hour. So I'm going to stop talking.
I know, and because they're playing in an industry they don't understand. And by the way, I'll give you a great example. I've seen over and over in the farming community, the local fertilizer and anhydrous supplier took the money that he was making off farmers and started buying farm ground and farming. How well do you think that went over in the farming community, right? If a manufacturer comes in and starts competing against me, guys will stop buying their equipment.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen this happen. So, and you might think that it's a short-term gain, because if that happens, we'll never buy that brand of equipment ever again, and nor will any other landscaper. And you will ruin a brand doing that. And I know we're railing on it, but it is true. If you use the money that I paid you to come then compete with me, it's over. Like,
well, I mean, listen, I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's been one of my obstacles in growing automated outdoor because I own Langton. So, I mean, there's been so many people. I mean, listen, The only reason it didn't bother you is because I think we both see each other as industry equals. But if I bring somebody in that hasn't achieved the level we've achieved at Langton yet, I'm their competitor. I'm their biggest competitor. They don't want to take any advice from me. But the reality is, if I look at the portfolio of work I'm doing right now, and can make it 22% profitable, then 40, 50, 60% later on, maybe I don't have to venture outside.
Why? Like, as long as we're talking to people, like we should do like the sports teams do, that we have to block out with our local competitor. Like, this can't be viewed by a local, like someone in our local area.
But you understand what I'm trying to say, Todd, is that, it's like if every person, whether you're a $500,000 landscaping contractor or $20 million, just made your own portfolio profitable in the next decade, you might find you're completely content.
Oh, I mean, and that was another point. So say that you, and it's the same thing with the manufacturer, right? Say that you pick up a national account, cemetery. Say you pick up a national cemetery account, and you're down here mowing one of ours, right? Or one in our area. Sorry, man. You're going to need somebody to service those mowers, and it's not going to be you, right? It's not going to be. So you're going to look for the guy that already has the battery operated van and the right, that already has a service technician to service those lawnmowers. I mean, it's just in their area. And I hate the model where someone else, a national, sells all the Costco's and then they farm it out to the local guy. But this is something different. This is a skilled professional. This is you. I view this very differently. If I take my car to the local GM dealer, whether it's here or someone in Florida, my car's going to get service work at that garage's rate, under warranty. So that's the same type of thing as what I view it as, is, hey, we're going to have a negotiated rate that we go and take care of those lawnmowers at that place.
So I was pumping fuel the other day, and I was thinking to myself, it must suck to be a gas station owner, because at the end of the day, whatever the commodity comes in at, they mark it up, and they're always competing with each other, and that's what it is. But then I had this like light bulb moment where I was like, automation is going to make things much the same way. And what it is this. We provide health insurance at Langton Group for our people.
Yep.
And we pay, and I know we pay a lot more per hour than a lot of other landscapers locally are paying.
And same for snow, right?
Yep. And I give people company trucks to drive home, and I do stuff that other contractors don't do. But no one ever realizes that. But at a gas station, okay, if it people will complain if they feel like they're being gouged at the pump, right? We all know this happens. But so when you look at what you're talking about with automation, working with partners and having like a network of people that work together, we all know what the automation costs. Okay. And so it's real easy for somebody to be like, hey man, I'll do that, but this is what I need. Okay. Because I know the costs, you know the costs, we all know the cost. It's nobody's wondering, are you paying people under the table? Are you paying people cash? Because that's what the consumer assumes anyways. Oh, you pay all those people cash anyways. They're all illegal. What are you talking about? The days of having illegal people work for your company, that doesn't exist. At least when you're a middle market size company. So anyways,
the model. Sorry, I know we're gonna.
No. So you finish that thought, and then I'm gonna pull the plug.
What's gonna happen? Like if you listen to the podcast I sent you, Built to Sell, what's gonna happen is we already have a recurring revenue model that money from the PE firms are coming into. Green industry is not sexy, right? We're not a sexy thing, but the money that's been pouring into the private equity, because they're looking at the blue chips or whatever, like the beating that the market's taking. And when a company like ours and mine and yours and all the well-run middle market green industry companies are doing, let's say between $5 and $50 million, right? And returning a 10 to 12% net. Well, we're performing better than anywhere else in the market. That's why the private equity money is flowing versus especially, compare us to the 1 in 50 or 1 in 100 technology company that makes it out of Silicon Valley. I know where I put my money on the better bet. Well, as this, you start talking 3-5 year contracts or a customer that's more sticky, that we're performing at, pretty soon 60 after a 3 year, 60 to 70% gross margin level. With these robotics, the private money and the equity and the roll-ups that will begin to take place in our industry will be massive. Or us, once as this model fully plays out over the next 18 to 24 months, other people become very attractive, because I can take somebody that's making, maybe 40% gross margin or with a 5% net profit average. By the way, that's what a lot of great industry companies do.
Exactly.
I can take and buy a company like that and flip it on its head in 12 months with robotics and be making 60% gross margins out of it. And you don't think these roll-ups are going to start to get faster and quicker. And if you build this machine right, you will become so attractive to private equity money that there'll be people, instead of a 4X or a 5X of EBITDA, you'll be looking at 10 and 12X EBITDA, because you will have a proven model that produces cash.
So listen,
I just let the cat out of the bag, by the way.
Well, listen, it'll be even higher. So I
was going low.
Yeah.
Just playing the.
I've been getting the PE offers like crazy. The reality of it is, I love what I do, so I don't take them, and I don't take them.
Having fun.
Exactly, but the one thing is, none of these people realize that people like you and I, because people assume because we talk a lot, we just don't listen. But I'm gifted with both. I listen and talk. So the thing is, in these conversations, I listen to things that they say, and what they say.
Passion, by the way, we talk a lot because it's like it starts firing. You and I start building the ideas off of each other, and it's just like I've got another idea working that you just gave me that my son and I are working on. He's presenting down at University of Tennessee. It's a whole nother industry, but I got into it anyway. But you just gave me a great idea for that, because what the non-visionary don't understand that are watching or listening to this is it's not that we talk over, it's the passion. If you read Rocket Fuel, right, or listen to Rocket Fuel, you'll all of a sudden you'll go, oh, that's why people get annoyed with me when I'm not talking over them. My brain's firing so fast that they're inspiring me with more ideas. So sorry, I didn't this interruption happens with Joe and I every day.
Yeah, that's well. So that's the thing, though. So when I look at it, at first I thought, I need to take money in, or maybe I will build it up, and then take PE money, and then say, okay, well, I'll still run it, but infuse your money. Now I realize it's profitable enough. I can keep doing this to a point where I can become the roll-up guy. Literally what you did.
Again, quiet on the next day on the.
Listen, I know. My personality, what it is. Listen, there's a lot of people who look at this and be like, hey, who knows? You never know. So the point is, I think when you're looking at the type of money that they'll be willing to put into this, I think you'll be well north of 20 times EBITDA.
And how fast I should expand it.
Yeah, because that's what'll happen. Because what I think the first company that can literally show robotics as a service on the books, because right now it's kind of fragmented. Like, you take some of our competition, it's really software as a service. It's not truly robotics as a service.
Yes, I've been reading it so much about it's robotics as a service. It's robotics with the software mixed in, and whoever's first to this game is going to be. But again, robotics won't do it all right now. Yeah. We could do 80% of it. We still may have to stop and mow a little bit here, do a little bit there. Sorry, we're going down that rabbit hole again. But the money, the roll-ups and the money, and how fast we can expand this, right? I can walk into a marketplace once. We have 24 months. I think we have 24 months to build the model and systems, right? I can build the model, the people, the systems, and the process. And once we have this figured out between you and me and the few others doing it, we can this is a steamroller moving across the U.S., right? There's not a market that we're not going. If I can take 5 highly motivated guys and do $10 million worth of service work with them, holy crap. Or 10, the number of people versus the revenue dollars is going to flip very, very soon.
Yep. No. So
again, cut the last 15 minutes out.
See, Chris, Todd's worried, but you know what? Actually, I'm not. So
because most people laugh at us, by the way.
No, listen, 99.999% of them think that what everything that we just said is just dreamland, but that's okay. Dreams are good.
They think we're absolutely lost our minds, but they don't understand that we have people behind us that will figure it out, right? We're going to set the first model up, and we're going to keep it adopting as we go. But this team behind me and the team that you have behind you are going to figure out how to run this effectively and very profitably.
And one of the things that I always think is interesting when I'm talking to manufacturers that either have, they're startups with financial backing or they're already a juggernaut, they'll always make comments like, yeah, but Joe, how are you going to do it? How are you going to do this out of that location? And I never actually say it to them. And this is actually the first time I'm publicly saying it. So you're inspiring me just to not give a shit today, Todd. But basically, when you look at the robotics branches of all of these manufacturing companies, they don't even get close to grossing the amount of millions of dollars you and I are doing in our companies with our teams,
Right.
without automation. So they're not placing their bets with the right people because they think people like you and I have just been running a small local business, and they can't imagine how we could take it national. But they're forgetting the fact that we've been doing it in an environment where it's starved of oxygen. Okay, we somehow figure out a way to pull profits. Like you said, 15, 18, 19% profits out of areas where most people couldn't even think to bleed that type of profit out of it. Then you put something like this where you're basically pouring rocket fuel on top of it. Things are going to go crazy fast, and that's what's exciting. That's
think if we can pull 20% off of double the amount of work with the same number of people. Only I can take a $10 million company, I can expand it to 20 million with the same labor cost, with a fixed 3 years of my equipment, and it keeps rolling. And not after just 3 years, right? We're reinvesting and trying to take, because it's a gold rush at this point, right?
Well, it is. And then people keep on telling me you have to be willing to take private equity, though. You like that's what happens. Manufacturers keep saying you have to come to a point where you're willing to take it. And I'm like, no, because when you build a profitable model, you don't need it.
Right. And the profits are significant enough to roll, right?
And listen, by the way, that doesn't mean that I'm saying I'm paying for all my robots with my own pocket change.
No,
I'm showing a profitable P&L. Okay. I'm saying, hey, here's my profit loss. I'm making money here. And then the one thing that we were able to do early on was pull a separate silo out to say, this is what my automation's doing. So as a whole, this is what the company's doing. But here's what the automation side is doing. You show that to a bank, and they're just like, oh yeah, how much money do you want?
Yeah. Or, I mean, we've rolled in and the private, you can't discount the private equity money as always wanting a piece. I've been approached by some very wealthy individuals that are more than willing to loan when they see the model. We've got these people competing with the banks to some extent. When they see the model of, wait, you can pay me 6%. That's better than I'm getting other places. I'm willing to loan you a couple $100,000, right? And it doesn't take long to go to that guy tells the next guy on the golf course or the next woman on the golf course, and so on and so forth. And you've got people lining up going, hey, you can show me 6% on my money. I'm willing to loan, like, for a 5-year deal. I can do, like, that's private equity money too.
So maybe this is the birth of another idea, and then we're going to call this. We're going to leave this thought to linger. But I've actually said I have as many people that want to offer money to what I'm doing as want a robotic lawnmower. And every time that happens, I question why I'm not starting a publicly traded company.
I don't think it needs to be publicly traded. I think you could easily do that's your own bank that I'm paying 6% on this money. I might as well be paying it to other people besides a bank. Because, oh man, I can go down that road. There's some unfunded liabilities that these banks have gotten in trouble with over their interest rates. And I don't know that it's just the bank, Silicon Valley Bank, that's going to be in trouble here. There's others that have a lot of risk that could potentially be. Even the community banks and the mid-sized banks are maybe out over their skis a little bit as I read this. So all of a sudden I'm like, hey, listen, we may not be the local community bank. Now, the one we bank at is very, very healthy and very secure, but there may be some other ones. We may have to look to this in our future. We've already, but it's, again, we're not just playing in the robotic lawnmower. We're talking about the economy as a whole. How do we get a great return for the risk we're taking?
Yeah. Well, I'd said, friend of mine, Joel with Deep Lawn, which if you haven't met him yet, I've got to introduce you to. He's a great guy. And, we were talking about Brightview's market cap right now is like down to like $55 million. It's crazy low.
That makes it a scary, like, one of my big clients is their stock's extremely low. Hostile takeover. I mean,
but here's the thing. So $55 million market cap. I think their billables right now are still in the billions.
Right.
Which is crazy to me.
By the way, they were at one point, Brightview was buying 6x of the EBITDA. They were buying 6x. They were literally throwing it in their portfolio the next day, and it was worth just right.
Correct.
And I listen to several. I follow. The guy Greg Herring, and he did a whole podcast on, like, you look, if you're selling for 6x and they're throwing it in their thing and doubling their money overnight, like, what are you doing? Right? 6x seems really good to if you're selling at the time, but they're worth 12x now, not so much. Right? They're getting beating.
So the thing is, though, I thought, man, what if you could raise 55 or 60 million and then take that entire portfolio of work and automate it?
Right? Because you're locking in those clients for a 5-year deal and taking it overnight and making the cash. You take them back private. You take them back. They'd have to go back. You'd have to go back private. Holy crap!
Rebrand it. Basically, here's how it goes. If the bottom end fits an automation, if it doesn't fit an automation, it gets dumped. Throw it back into the market. Let the truck take.
Dump it all.
Right? Then the stuff that can automate, you automate
or do that. Continue it for a year, but do it with the guys that are really good at mowing. Right? You could take your even for until you can replace that. There has to be an X of there has to be a line out there somewhere in time that, okay, at this date, we're going to start cutting off those clients, right? But you could keep the cash coming in because you're not going to be able to automate something like that within even 12 months. It's going to take 24.
But listen, Todd, I was thinking about this though. When you think about it, every one of their locations is just a Reinhart or a Langton.
Every one of their
branches, because that's what they did. They rolled up people probably smaller than us. I mean, I said it on a LinkedIn post that the Brightview roll-ups actually made middle market guys like us stronger, because it pulled up the small people that were like, yeah, I'll sell out. Boom, I'll just work with you. It diluted their side because now people see them as a broker. And where did all that work fall? Well, it fell right in our laps, right? So, but at the end of the day, I like I said, I look at it and I'm like, okay, what's the biggest thing right now? I just wanted to get more and more market share to automate. It's sitting there. It's sitting on a table.
Yep.
Just waiting.
It's whoever's, like, I'm telling you, this is when you and I talked and I went and saw, I said, this is the industrial revolution. This is like being in the Silicon Valley in the 1980s right now. Like, the world is it's there for the taking. Like, I think we can take we're 10 million on one side, 10 million on the other side, but at Reinhart's, I think we can take that to $100 million landscape company by using automation to force that.
So that's what I said. I told my team that I think we should easily do 100 million at Langton, do an automation, and AOS is going to do $1 billion. That's the goal. So anyways, all right. Well,
I would be interested in running the $1 billion model out. I'm not sure quite how you get to $1 billion, but the 100 million on the Langton side is easily doable.
So I'm going to tell you, I'll start with, okay, just the driving range silo in golf is
I forgot about that. All right, done. Yeah. I just caught up to where you're at. $1 billion is not a billion.
And so listen, I'll never get there by working with landscape professionals, because I've realized, honestly, there's just not enough paths. There's not enough people like you.
No. You will, by us do, like, if Reinhart start to roll up, we hit 100, 200, $300 million. The other top 20 players, I introduced you to one of them.
Yeah, we're actually going to see that person in a week and a half. Yeah.
Yep. And I introduced you to one of those through friendships that I got introduced to him. But you start working with 10 or 15 of us that are doing 200 to 300 million each. All of a sudden, yes, the Langton the AOS becomes $1 billion company supporting the top, that us that are hitting 200, 300, 400 million each.
Yeah.
Through robotics.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's gonna, the market, the number of companies is going to shrink, because once this roll starts, it becomes a fascinating model. And whether the manufacturer can actually supply us with enough equipment and technology to roll. But see, I've been making the argument with Aspire right now, because their parent company is Service Titan. It's the largest. It's plumbers, heat, HVAC, electrical. They have software in all those industries, all the service industries. But I have been making a huge beg, hey guys, this is coming. That software that we're using, Aspire, should work with the robotic lawnmowers, and you need to start it today. Which should already have a robotic P. You better be developing it, because it's coming. And as we scale, we need one system, right? Convergence is going to happen at some point. We're using they're already adopting the system we're using in Aspire to track our vehicles. That's Azuga is outside of Aspire, but it comes into Aspire to see the warnings and the signals. So my people are using one piece of software. Well, Bamboo HR ought to be working directly with Aspire. All these APIs everything should be working with Aspire. And I think they'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think when you look at it, sometimes we overcomplicate it, because at the end of the day, once you put the robots out, and even myself, making the app with Julia, I realized once it's sold and once it's there, it's just a matter of making sure it works. And as long as it's working, and listen, in the landscape professionals already doing site visits, they're already doing quality control checks. So you can very easily see if a robot's not working in a quality control check. And at the end of the day, if you're just putting your robotics into the same billing template you're already in, it's likely. At least that kind of stuff, Todd, I don't disagree with what you said, but that stuff can play catch up as long as you gobble up market share.
But when I look, what my point to that was, as we look at this hockey stick, right, of this speed of scale that we could go after, I don't want the software behind it trying to play catch up, right? I'm like, hey, look, if this is the hockey stick that we're looking at on scaling this robotics, and we can truly do branch after branch after acquisition after, we're going to have to put, I think that we're going to have to put a mergers and acquisition, it's not, you and I haven't discussed this yet, but we're going to have to create our own mergers and acquisitions team that does nothing but goes out, tries to buy other landscape companies in other markets, and and that team does nothing but the M&A, more acquiring than merging. But as this hockey stick takes off and the robotics takes off, we're going to have to be just like putting in my wife at the, on recruited and onboarding. We're going to have our own M&A team at Langton and at Reinhart's, and we're going to have to be working this. We're like we put a sales team together. We're going to have a team that goes out and looks for landscape grounds maintenance companies to buy.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's going to be an exciting decade, Todd.
Anyway, we can go on this for days.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, great show. Great 3 shows, maybe. I don't know.
4. What are we on now? Part 1, part 2, like the half-hour ones I really like the ones that I listen to. The half-hour ones there's hours and there are half-hour ones, and the hours are really good, but part 1, part 2, part 3 now, or whatever it's all about building the brand and making it worth more. Because whether it's built to sell or whether it's something that we keep because we're having so much fun at doing what we're doing, it's about making that. And look, what you and I are doing here, hopefully the next generation or the next entrepreneur or the next Langton or Reinhart employee runs across this podcast at some time and goes, that's the place I want to go work. That's the culture, that's the people, and those are the systems that I want to work under and through, and I want to be part of that team.
Well, yeah, at the end of the day, if you're working with a company that's constantly growing and is talking about doing 100 million, taking 10 million to 100 million, the amount of opportunity that's going to come from that, the amount of branches that'll come out of that, and directors and managers, and I mean, all the different levels of opportunity, it makes it worthwhile to stay, because then you have a career. If you're at a company that's stagnant and is never changing or moving, then I mean, this is the position you're going to be in until you go to another company. And like I said, going back to what I said earlier to Tanner, he laughed and he said to me, he said, man, you're dropping some bombs today. And the bomb I dropped was, I said, listen, Tanner, in my mind, you guys, smaller thinkers, which by the way, big thinkers need the smaller level thinkers.
Yeah, and vice versa.
You see it as 98% of the things I've worked on, I haven't seen over the finish line, but it's because I'm not done. I've already laid the line in the sand. $1 billion company, $100 million company, regional. I want to take Langton from local to regional, right? So if that's the case, I'm not done yet. You're wondering why I haven't gotten to the finish line, and to me, you're running a sprint and I'm running a marathon. It's two totally different thoughts.
And I'm moving the finish line every day, because when you scale it up, right? If right now, if I need 75 people to do 10 million, I told my wife, who's our recruiter and onboarding, we want to go to 100 million, right? I'm going to need, without taking automation into but I'm going to need 750 people. Yeah. Give or take. So maybe that's 500. And she, Green, wants to throw up, you're making me sick. Stop, right? But that's what his visionaries do, is push the envelope every single day. But when you start talking about, I need, let's say it's 500. You need 500 people over the next 10 years. You better be developing a bench, and it better happen right now.
Yeah, see, to me, though, that just means instead of me talking to 10 people a week, I'm going to talk to 100 people, or not even 50 people a week, maybe, because my circle is small. I only have to inspire my leaders, and then they do that, right? So that's why your wife's like, because she's your recruiter. She's like, holy cow, I got to see a lot of people. You're looking at it like, hey, that's a few more like big thinkers I get to be with,
Yeah. So, yep. So, all right.